not a quick bit, Jordan. This is insane.
We appreciate all the support that you've ever given us, and go Cog Prime.
And I want to make sure you get your trophy here as well, man. MVP, Cyno, and his heavy, man. Make sure you hold on to it for me. MVP, raise it up for him, man.
It's just so incredible. I'm so happy. And, I've always wanted to tell my parents that I finally won this tournament. So, Mom, Dad, I finally won Worlds.
Feels like I'm in a dream. I haven't woken up yet. Hopefully, this dream never stops.
Splice are going to be your Season 5 World Champions. This is their moment.
Untouched, unscathed, bow down to your kings, the Camelot Kings, champions of the world.
Happy Saturday, Smite fans, and welcome into day number 2 of week number 1 of season 10 of the Smite Pro League. We had great games for you yesterday, and we've got 3 more best of 3 sets in the Smite Pro League here today. As a helpful reminder, remember all 10 players or all players who are in studio with us here all throughout the day, all throughout the weekend, will be streaming their perspectives on their own personal channel. So if you want to tune in to Paul during this Ferryman's matchup, great. Go to his Twitch channel. You can watch his POV the entire time. Same with every other player who is live with us here in studio. All player POVs all weekend long. So make sure to make use of that. If you're trying to learn a new role, watch a player and their tendencies, a lot of good information to be gained there. My name is Dolson. Trelly Relly joins me to start off the day. Trelly, we are 2 sets into our year here in Season 10 of the Smite Pro League. 2 2-0s. We're going to get our first look at a few of the other teams that we didn't get yesterday, starting with Styx Ferrymen, Gilded Gladiators, moving on to the Hounds a bit later on, and so lots of new information for us today.
Yeah, it should be interesting because we didn't get a good look at some of these teams in the kickoff tournament. They were sort of out one game, and I'm really excited to see what the Glads and the Ferrymen have to offer.
That's right. And we'll get Oni Warriors, the winners of the kickoff tournament, as our final set here today. So this morning we had the SEC EU broadcast by our community team. We will have 3 best of 3s, starting with Styx Ferrymen against the Gilded Gladiators, ending with Oni Warriors versus the Atlantis Leviathans here on Saturday. And then after the broadcast, after our broadcast, stay tuned for the North American Smite Challenger Circuit, again brought to you by our community team. We're going to run the same thing back tomorrow. Oni Warriors going back-to-back. Be here this afternoon, and then tomorrow morning, of course, at 11 a.m. Eastern time for the SPL, 9 a.m. Eastern time for the SEC. And we can talk a bit more about this opening matchup, though, Trelly, because it's the Styx Ferrymen who we got a small glimpse at during that kickoff tournament, and the Gilded Gladiators, who we also got a small glimpse of during that kickoff tournament. I think the big story with the Gladiators, if we want to talk about this squad, is traditionally these play-in teams have struggled in the SPL. It's been a long, difficult road to get up to speed, and play-in teams of past have not quite strung wins together. I wonder if this Gilded Gladiators may be feeling a bit different.
I would think so. At the very least, confident. Every time we get to talk to these guys, whether or not they believe, they look happy.
They're happy.
And I think that's an important step number 1. They believe that they've got a winning squad. I think that they fought their way into this league. They definitely earned their spot, upsetting some people that we didn't really think that they had it in them, right? So once they popped off in that play-in tournament, I think everyone stopped underestimating the Gilded Gladiators in that sense. So whether or not you're still doing it, I guess that's up to you. But Styx Ferrymen is going to be a difficult matchup for them just because they've been, I think the main core have been playing together for a while, whereas the Gilded Gladiators, most of them are not that experienced with playing with each other. I think that, you know, Inbound and Scary Deep got some tenure there, but besides that, they're going to have to get used to each other's play style. And that can have some growing pains, right? When you haven't played with some guys before, then you have to get used to them. But like I said, confidence, that's a good way to start it.
Yep, I think Kyrmi is going to be a spearhead for this team, such a talented, smart mind for the game. And then on the other side, you got veteran talent, Snoopy, who's been around the SPL for years. And, you know, I'll admit, I wasn't 100% certain how Snoopy was going to look in the mid lane, you know, through the play-in tournament. I figured this would be a competitive team, but is Snoopy going to be able to compete? And he sure did during that kickoff tournament. He looked great during those final 3 games. Remember, it was a reverse sweep to qualify in. And then during the kickoff tournament, this was the team that got 2-0'd by the Kings, but that game 2 was one that they nearly won. Really just forgot to drop the Runic Bomb on the Titan. That would have been a 3-game set against the Kings. And so this Gladiators team, that they have the ability to step up and compete. Inbound's got the lightning bolt on his collar. He's won console world championship in years of past. And so I think it's a team where you talk about the growing pains and you know, the path to growth really for this team and what we're expecting. But I think they're in a better spot than some of the play-in teams of past. And so I expect a bit more right away from this squad than maybe some of the other teams we have been talking about. Their opponents, however, trailing no pushovers. The Styx Ferrymen, who we didn't get much data on during that kickoff tournament, but it's Baskin, Cyno, Paul, Aror, CycloneSpin, and then Coach Reels. So you got this core of Paul, Aror, Cyclone, who've been playing together for a couple years now. Obviously, CycloneSpin sort of in and out of the league last year, now rejoins this team. Cyno has won Worlds with a couple of these players. Baskin has also played on a team with a couple of these players. And so there is history, but this is really the first time this entire unit will have played with one another.
And this team I always thought was going to be very interesting just because they have that tenure that you were talking about, but it's not as bad as, I guess, the Oni Warriors in the sense of a bunch of players coming in that we didn't expect to play together. For example, you know, Baskin joining this squad I thought was going to be interesting, and I think does bring that extra level of we don't know how this squad is going to play, because typically teams that have had Baskin in the solo lane have tried to play around that solo lane, and during the kickoff tournament, Baskin was looking towards, you know, things like Chernobog. He was playing Hunters in the solo lane, so I'm very curious to see how they've adapted since that tournament, because I imagine the placement that they had in the play-in tournament is not what they were looking for, meaning they have to change up their gameplay style in some way, shape, or form. I want to see a new look from Baskin out of the solo lane, one that maybe we've seen before. That's not the biggest issue. If he just goes to his traditional Thors or Odins, you know, things like that, I wouldn't have the biggest issue. I just want to see how they mesh together and play around each other, because teams have passed with this core 3, the Cyclone, Aurora, and Paul. They usually play through mid lane. They try and let Paul just run away with the game, and that's not really what we were seeing the last time we saw the Styx Ferrymen in action. Yep.
I think with the Styx Ferrymen, we saw some highlights from CycloneSpin. The question's going to end up being, how does Cyclone perform this year? Because this is a team, Trelly, if we talk about the tendencies of the Ferrymen and really what's been formerly known as the Titans, that roster over the last couple of years, it's been middle of the road standings-wise during the regular season. During a round-robin play, they've won some games. They've lost some games that they should have won. They've lost some games, or they've won some games that they should have lost. You know, it's a team that can find upsets but also gets upset. But then during tournament time, always finds a way to get it done. Has made a couple of Worlds runs in years of past. And I sat down with them. I wondered, you know, what do you want to do differently this year? And I think it's a team that says, yes, we love doing well in our tournaments. However, we would like to really get things going during the regular season and build up some consistency there. Should be a fun support matchup in this one. Aror, storied player. Inbound's been around for a while as well. And Troy, I think 2 of the best personalities in the league when you can sit down and chat with them.
I can't believe that Inbound's got 1 more average gold than Aror.
Is that true?
Look at that. That just goes to show. I mean, Auror's got him beaten just about every other stat, but that farm game, Bobby's doing well, and I think you're right. Very, very kind gentleman.
Think about it. 1 extra gold over the course of a long game is almost an entire potion. Or maybe a ward.
It could be a ward, and that vision may win the game. So
1 extra gold per
already,
minute, that's right.
the Gladiators have a little bit of an edge in that.
What do you think some keys are here for the Styx Ferrymen? I mean, it's a team that'll probably be favored going into this matchup. They've got everyone here in studio.
Yep.
What do you think gives them the edge maybe over the Gilded Gladiators?
I still think, given how we saw them play in play-ins, they still do have the ability to let Paul pop off. He was playing a lot of Baba Yaga during that tournament. I say tournament, it was 1 game. So, you know, that's the smallest amount of data possible. But I think Paul still does have the ability to just run over a team and just mechanic stiff pretty much everyone on the opposition if given that amount of farm, if given that amount of space. And it seems like if Cyno and Baskin are able to, you know, dive in first, kind of create that space for Paul, I still think they can run away with the game. So the Gilded Gladiators are going to have to watch out for mid lane. They're going to have to put some pressure through Snoopy, maybe to get aggressive towards whatever Paul decides to play. Because if he's given that room, if he's just left alone to free cast, I mean, it's not going to be close.
Paul's got the lightning bolt diff as well.
And he does.
I'm putting way too much stock in the lightning bolt.
I don't think so. I think Paul's got.
Start with 2, and then you go to 1 with Cyno. Baskin hasn't won Worlds yet. What is it in the other direction? So on the other side, is it support and then AD carry? Yes, and so Aror and Cyclone both have their 1 lightning bolt. So
then Scarad's got 2, and then
that's right.
Bobby's got 1, and that's it.
That's right. I'm thinking in the Ferryman booth though. Down the line, Paul looking towards Cyno and then to Baskin. Paul has the edge in that conversation, and also headed in the other direction as well. I don't remember who has Paul on their fantasy team. I'm wondering if I should have drafted him when I had the chance. That's a big question about this year, though. Does Paul really get things going? We've seen Worlds Paul. That's when we've seen some of the most clutch plays, some of the most individual moments, some of the best individual moments in the history of competitive Smite. Wanting to get back to a bit of that on a regular basis during the regular season will be an objective here for Paul. I think the Gilded Gladiators, though, on the flip side, Trelly, they've got a lot to build off of on their team. I think out of the mid lane, Snoopy's got his hands full today up against Paul. But I think the supports and their matchup could be one of the most important ones we've got all weekend long. And as such, the supports sat down for a pregame interview.
With all the patches coming out, it's interesting. You never really know how it's going to affect like the whole state of the game. Once SPL starts, I feel like it'll be a lot easier to tell what people really like and what our team really likes. It's gonna be different, I feel like, which different is always, it's never a bad thing, I feel like. So we'll see what happens. It could be bad, it could be good, but right now I don't know because we haven't played any SPL matches yet.
I think the beginning phase might be a little bumpy. It's our first time kind of getting together. A lot of us have maybe played a couple games before, but for the most part, as a whole, a lot like our core 3v3 is really, really different. I expect us to play pretty well, maybe win half of our games, somewhere in that range, and be like 4th, 5th area, but I know our upside is always going to be the #1 seed.
Our matchup into the Gladiators, I think, is going to be good. I'm excited to play against Stu. We'll see how that dual lane matchup goes out. I think Scary versus Baskin's like another classic matchup. And then we got Paul and Snoopy in mid. I'm feeling good. And then they got Kyrmi in jungle and Bobby in support. So I'm feeling good about our matchup.
I think we can match up pretty well with the Ferrymen. The beginning of the year, it's really just like rough matchups. Everybody's still trying to figure out the meta. And with a team that has as much talent as that team has, playing them at the beginning, start off your season is a nice little test to see how you kind of match up against them. And then the later into the year it goes, the better they are obviously going to get. And so it's just a constant test through the entire year. So I think we match up pretty well, and I'm excited to play them.
How do you think it's a realistic approach, Trelly, from both supports there, or favoring their matchup, Inbound, realizing that it might not be the easiest at the start? However, realizing that long-term, this Gilded Gladiators team has a whole lot of upside. I love that we have the clips, and I'm glad we are able to watch them back sometimes, of the Gilded Gladiators winning and qualifying into the SPL, because there's such like sheer panic in the best way. It's like just emotional, just confusion almost is what's just happened, but they're so excited. Snoopy's like losing his mind. I love that video of the Gilded Gladiators, and their journey towards Masters and towards Worlds starts right now in picks and bans for Game 1 up against the Styx Ferrymen. Gentle reminder that all players in studio will be streaming their live perspectives on their own respective Twitch channels. And so I believe for the Gilded Gladiators, you can check out Inbowned or Stu and their POVs. For the Styx Ferrymen, oh, Kyrmi is here as well. For the Styx Ferrymen, all 5, you can tune into and watch their perspective throughout the set here today if you are interested. Let's catch up, though, with bans a bit here. Trilly, Hebo, and Hades both taken off the board, and then healers follow suit. Did see a lot of Guan Yu yesterday. Feels like that's top of the support meta, or the soul lane meta, rather, right now. Yemoja also getting some love. And it's one of Aror's strongest picks. And so it makes some sense. Remember, Aphrodite has been heavily banned out. From what we saw yesterday, we saw some Martichoras start to get priority. So with some of those newer bans, it seems like we'll have a power pick or 2 left open.
Should be, and I like the call here from the Ferryman to try and focus out Scary D. Definitely one of the driving forces of this squad. If he gets a pop-off game, or if the very least gets to have some pressure in lane, can really make the difference once it comes time to rotate to those team fights. So Guan Yu, Hades, smart call. I remember his Camazotz was very deadly at that kickoff tournament, or the qualifier tournament, I should say. So things to note that the Styx Ferrymen are taking account of. Well, the Gilded Gladiators are still focused on those healers. They take away the hell. Probably a smart call. Sustain is unfortunately still big in the meta at the moment. A lot of these healers are heavily prioritized, and one more ban going the way of Scary D. So that's going to be 3 solo bans strong. The Gilded Gladiators have their pick, what they want to first pick. If they value that Terra for Inbound, that has been something that's been taken away a lot. Or, as you said, that Aphrodite pick that I think a lot of teams are trying to ignore if possible, right? It seems like, yeah, we'll ban it, but we don't want to play it either. No one really wants a game where that Afro gets through, and they're just going to grab that pick for Scary. Or I guess could be flexing over for Bobby as well, but more than likely going to Scary.
It is a pick we've seen Inbound play once or twice. However, with the current state of the meta, I imagine that'll be a solo lane Hercules. Has been Surtr, Odin, outside of the Hades Guan Yu for Scary D, so it'll be the first Hercules game. We'll have seen him play in a little while, but I imagine, again, with the relative strength of that character and where we've seen teams placing it, that should be over in the solo lane. Again, Aphrodite comes to mind if it's something the Styx Ferrymen feel like they want to prioritize, because she's just been looked at by essentially every other team, and that's including the kickoff tournament. However,
Flee if you can.
Could be Merlin Marty, and it sure is for the Styx Ferrymen. Both their carries figured out. Truly late game shred already at an all-time high for this Ferryman roster.
Yeah, Marty can be very deadly in lane, especially once you let him get online with that red items, just Heartseeker, Crusher, you know, that style of build. He can delete some of these carries. I'm loving the ability-based Marty plays, and also that Stealth Grass. I think we haven't seen too many plays from it so far, but in ranked play in particular, you can really set up some annoying corridors to walk up to. Objective fights can be a nightmare when Marty is in play. And it looks like the Styx Ferrymen are going to prioritize that pick quite heavily, so I'm curious what the Gladiators do to try and combat that. They had to know it was a possibility that Martichoras would be grabbed early. With that, they've got some solid dive. They got Hercules and Susano, and the Aphrodite hover.
Okay.
They're going to lock that one in. Question is, does that go over to Inbound in the support role, or are you just going to let it go over towards Snoopy in mid? We've seen a few different ways of this Aphrodite pick work. We even saw Sot take it into the solo lane, so there's a lot that could be happening here with this Afro pick.
Yep, there's been a lot of value, though, placed in the utility and the tankiness that Aphrodite is able to supply her teammates. And Aphrodite plus Susano Trelly is about as cliche as it gets as good link-up targets in SMITE, right? So could be an option for support Aphrodite. And of course, Kyrmi so talented on Susano anyway, but you link those two together, and it could be unstoppable for the Gilded Gladiators. So will the cliche work out in game one? That's the question. Styx Ferrymen, though, they've got a lot working on their side as well. The Horus now adds an extra layer of complexity to their draft, where you've got this great late-game burn. You're going to melt down targets and shred away some protections, you assume. Horus has the ability to do that as well, while also rotating the team quite effectively. Looks like the Styx Ferrymen are getting the read that the mid lane still open, that this should be Aphrodite support, an Agni and a Tiamat, both banned away from Snoopy, whereas the Gladiators worried about the Surtr, worried about the Odin, because Baskin still looms, Trelly. This is going to be a very difficult Styx Ferryman roster to pick ban against.
Yeah, certainly is. You really you can't figure out exactly where either one of these teams are sending the picks so far, and because of that, I imagine you got to take a little bit more time when deciding what you want to ban away. Both teams decide to just focus out one guy. In this case, the Gladiators, as you said, don't want to make sure they're dealing with any of the picks that can die this Afro, which Baskin can pilot, and the Odin and the Surtr. And then I think Snoopy just taking away those traditional mages, which makes a lot of sense to me. The Tiamat is a pick that he goes to really whenever open, so could be annoying, could just bring that extra pressure in lane. When you're against the Merlin, you know, you're probably not playing for that early. Paul, as skilled as he is on Merlin, can't get too aggressive for a bit, and it looks like, at least so far, that Horus is postured over towards the solo lane. We've seen a fair bit of Golden Blade, Horus solo. You really can bring your team just about anywhere if you get that to the Sky's ultimate and you group up on it. So the Ganesha Horus, not too much damage so far. A lot of CC, a lot of control, but if we're looking at raw DPS output, Merlin and Marty aren't going to bring enough. I think you're going to need one more damage dealer here for the Styx Ferrymen. We'll have to see where they go. So far, it's looking like Cyno's pick saving for last, which could be just about anything, Dave.
Literally anything that's still available. Cyno has probably tried to make it work in the jungle one way or another. And I imagine this will be, you know, a popular type of draft strategy for the Styx Ferrymen, where you leave Cyno's pick open to last, especially if we're expecting him to be a bit more flexible.
Huang.
And so this means Herc solo, Aphrodite support, Huang mid, Susano jungle, and then Ram AD carry for the Gilded Gladiator. Seems like a well-rounded composition, Trelly. Honestly, Aphrodite is really the only one somewhat new to the meta because of recent changes. Outside of that, this is a composition I might have expected the Gilded Gladiators to play during their play-in run as well. And it could still be damage for Cyno if that's a Nike jungle. Could still see just the nuke style full damage build. Could also be a bit more hybrid depending on what the Ferrymen need.
Yep, it's probably going to be a little bit hybrid. It's not my favorite pick, but I think it's got a great matchup into Susano in particular. A lot of the pulls, the knockups, that sort of thing that Susano wants to go for just doesn't really affect Nike. And if your one singular goal is to try and force out that Afro and look for picks, I think the Nike jungle can fulfill that role just fine. You're really just trying to peel and set up for the double M's, the Merlin-Marty combo here from the Styx Ferrymen, and I think they've got the draft to do so. On the other side, it's going to be difficult because Afro, in my mind, even with the changes, is still not that tanky, right? She has plenty of setup. She can make Susano a threat, and that's going to be the call, right? How much can Kyrmi carry with this link, with this healing, with the sustain, with the CC that Afro can provide? I think late game can be deadly. It just takes a bit for that comp to really get online. You do need some itemization from the Afro, from the Susano, 2-3 items before you're able to dive to the backline effectively. And once you get there, you're going to be silenced by the Ganesha. You're going to be knocked up by Horus. There's a lot of tanky targets in the backline for the Ferrymen to just say, hey, we're not letting the Susano run the game. And then he's not just going to run through us.
Well, it does seem like this is an expected Gilded Gladiator style of draft. So often with the play-in, the qualifier teams, they get away from their own identity a bit too early on. I mean, obviously you kind of melt into the overall SPL meta, but you got to play the game in your own way. I'm glad to see the Gilded Gladiator sticking with a composition that I'd expect them to play, specifically the Susano for Kyrmi. So important for him and this team and their success over the last couple of months, playing it about half the time in the last 6 games. 3 out of the last 6 have been on Susano, and now it's going to be 4 out of the last 7. Styx Ferrymen, though, they've got a very threatening draft on their side. I mean, you're giving Paul one of his great picks in the Merlin. We're getting Marty, who, Trelly, we haven't seen wins from yet, but carries a lot of weight. Is the backline dive there for the Gilded Gladiators?
I think it is. It's just going to be how you have to make sure you're fighting with your relics up. You have to make sure the Afro's on point. I think a lot of weight on Bobby here to time that ultimate perfectly, to immune some of this CC, to let Susano really do his job. Because, again, you're running into Horus, Ganesha, Nike. It's not going to be easy.
We have a lot of questions. Let's get some answers. It's game 1 between the Ferryman and the Gladiator to start off our Saturday.
Well, thanks so much, Dave and Trelly, for breaking it down as we jump in, as mentioned, to the game 1 Gladiators and the Ferryman. It's Gormizer, it's Mifflin. And, of course, it's Doug to jump through this one. And Mifflin, you know, there's a lot of things I think we're jumping around, looking at these P's and B's, potentially talking about and focusing in on. The thing I want to ask you almost immediately is this Aphrodite. And it's mainly because Kickoff, I think, banned almost all the time. I think there was like one game that she was let through. And then you watch, you know, the SEC games that we've done. You come into this. Feels like she's been like, hey, you gotta ban her. You can't let her through. Is letting her through a mistake here? Or do you think that it's something that can be managed?
You know, during kickoffs in the SEC, playing on 10-3 and 10-2, I think maybe a big mistake to let Aphrodite through. Now in 10-4, we've got a little bit of a change to her. It's less protections given over to your ally that you're linked to. So
True.
Whether or not that's tipped her over the edge of not quite top of the meta or still incredibly powerful, we've, you know, TBD. I'm not so sure, but I still do like what Aphrodite brings to a team.
Yeah.
With the out-of-combat healing changes, no longer is there that out-of-combat healing reduction. Now you've got all of it all the time. Feels like the sustain that Aphrodite affords her teammates should still be amongst the most valuable in the game. Very high single-target healing. You can really get those cooldowns rolling as well. So late game Fire Giant, Gold Fury dances still should favor any team that has an Afro on it. And then as the Des brought up, I mean, Susano Afro.
Yep.
How do you beat that?
You beat me to it. I was going to say the same thing. And the question that is posed to them, how do you beat that? The Ferrymen answer it. Cyno going Nike into the jungle. And, you know, Mifflin, it's not the first time we've seen something like this, so it's not necessarily uncommon. But it does feel very ultimate-oriented, right? Go in, be kind of the big tactical bomb for your team, and then theoretically have some of the follow-up. The Desk had wanted damage. Does Nike bring enough?
You know, I'm glad you actually bring up that tac nuke style of play for Nike. It was Sam for Soccer, who I believe spearheaded that build, that style of play, rocking the full assassin, Nike jungle, just go in with the ultimate, immediately die afterward and pray that you had enough damage. But when Sam for Soccer was doing it, it was Mannequin's Hidden Blade in first slot, as opposed to the Eye of the Jungle that's already been picked up by Cyno. So damage output's still going to be pretty high, I think, for Cyno, but one-shot potential, certainly not there. And you have got the option with Protector of the Jungle to go for a slightly more hybrid build where you'll be able to double dip on tankiness and the power so long as you're fighting in neutral territory. Feels like Nike could put just enough pressure out to force that Aphrodite ultimate. But the Desk brings up a great point, and it's one I'm going to be keeping my eyes on. Often Aphrodite players will hold that ultimate in response to things like, I don't know, a Merlin combo or Martichoras damage or something along those lines, a Kraken or a Searing Pain. But so often, the great Aphrodites, they'll use it just to immune one bit of CC. This one thing that slows down the combo to facilitate aggression from their own team as opposed to just surviving.
All right, now inbound. Might need to just save himself. There's the shell autos. Oh, they're trying so much. The Bastion takes a little bit of roar. Oh, he tries as hard as he can. And the acid rain just a little left there. So Inbound gets to survive. But, you know, you had mentioned it, all the things that you said about Aphrodite, at least trying to survive and maybe immune some of that CC. You got to get to 5 first. Right now, Inbound still needs to play maybe a little carefully.
Yeah, Aphrodite's got a really miserable level 1, level 2. Around level 3, you feel a lot better once you have access to back off, create some space for yourself, or even increase your damage output from range with whoever you're linked to. But until then, this god is just really difficult to utilize. And with the inherent anti-heal that Marty's got in his kit, that the strength of Aphrodite going to be mitigated a bit in this lane.
Something else that's caught my eye the last couple of days, and admittedly we've seen it the last 2 weeks or so, right, in some of the SCC starts. And I just want to pick your brain, especially because you'll have a jungler mentality about it, so I'm curious. The start with the mid laners scooping up the right speed buff while the jungler takes the left speed buff. Like, experience-wise, it's just better, right? You're getting all of the camps as opposed to what we saw the Ferrymen do this time around, which is delay that second speed buff a little longer, and so it doesn't get taken as early. But do you think, like, as a mid laner, is that like a detriment? Like, is Snoopy, I mean, obviously not falling behind, right? He's technically a little ahead of Paul. But does it hurt them not having that red buff for that first rotation, or do you think it's beneficial to actually have the speed buff?
Well, this is more of a mid lane question.
Yeah,
wish aggro was here, but
I wanted to hear you rage about getting your speed buff taken.
I hate it. I do hate losing my speed, but as far as I understand it, mid laners with red buff are just going to have superior pressure, higher kill potential as well, the ability to control neutral farm, I think very significant for that. So you're sacrificing a whole lot there. But Generally, when we see the mid laners pick up the red, their jungler will also join them in mid, and you can play around that. Whereas so far, haven't really seen too many rotations towards mid from Kyrmi, have we? So it's just been solo farm. Speed buff will give you safety as opposed to the aggressive tendencies of a red buff. So does it hurt them? Yeah, but Huang's pretty decent at keeping wave out of his tower anyway.
Even more surprised to see Snoopy, maybe accidentally, maybe purposefully, pick up the green buff. You clearing the camp's one thing, but utilizing it definitely.
Yeah, ask me what green buff does for a mid laner. I have no clue. I've got no idea.
Yeah, when your jungler comes around, their speed is a little better for them.
Off, yeah.
But only for like the 30 seconds max throughout the buff duration that they're there. Yeah, that one's gonna be.
That must have been an accident, surely.
It has to be.
Well, it's survivability. You get a little HP. A little.
Maybe you're just trying to hold your own, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe you just scoop up a green buff. We'll see. If he picks it up a second time, it's deliberate. If he doesn't...
And we will be asking him about it.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. As of right now, though, it's just the farm game. Slightly ahead of Paul still in terms of experience, but both level 6, so it's not that big a deal. After that attempt on Afro, now that ults are up, relics have kind of come back, right? That shell that was popped earlier is there again. Ganesha usually isn't even known for being able to stay aggressive early on. Nike does not seem to me like someone who is going to help get this team off, you know, a really good early game gank, right? It's something that as time goes on. So do you expect, well, maybe more fights in the jungle? Do you expect to just kind of sit back and farm? Do you expect maybe Kyrmi to lead the way in terms of maybe kill potential for these teams?
Well, Nike may be lacking in damage output, especially when comparing directly to a Susano, but as far as getting the fight started and putting someone out of position, Nike's much better at that. Susano's really just relying on that pull and a knockup. Cyno can just go in with the knockup from the leap, the slow immediately afterward. If you're behind them, that shield wall, making it very difficult to maneuver a lane. So expect Nike to be a little bit more so a facilitator, or potentially continue to look to bully Kyrmi out of the jungle. Susano does not pose a whole lot of threat to Nike, whereas Nike does pose a significant threat to the Susano, just by nature of having essentially 2 HP bars.
Well, shield buff. Fought over. Aror wins it alongside CycloneSpin. And much to your point, we've seen Cyno bullying more often than not. Just a little bit in the jungle. But neither of these teams look like they're going for anything too massive just yet. Scary D's been more than willing to throw out the boulder just to clear the wave a little quicker. And that, to me, is screaming that they're not looking for the fight right now, or at least not thinking that they're going to win this fight. Gets a small pushback. Might actually have some damage. There's the boulder, but a good dash from Baskin gets him to the Bastion. And that gets him out of there. Now Scary D has to play it safe. Knocked back by Cyno. Down comes Baskin. Knockup misses the damage. It's not there. Now Kyrmi's here. It's going to be a little late to get the save, but it's enough to pick up one. Enough to chase down another. No, there's the tick damage. And it's a double kill for Kyrmi off a great rotation.
Man, Kyrmi just knows his damage numbers. I thought it was a massive misplay to actually use the teleport off the 3 there. I was expecting him to try and chase out the leap away from Cyno, but the auto cancel just enough, and the very last tick, able to secure the kill for himself. Well played to Scary D to survive as long as he did, and I think that's a byproduct of the Nike out of the jungle. Just not a whole lot of damage. Snoopy, what are you doing on tower line? That's world champion Paul. Walks up, gets aggressive, nearly secures himself the kill, but it's Paul who's able to turn it around, and who else but Paul? I mean, I wouldn't have doubted it for a second.
What I love even more in that is just the body blocks, right? Like Paul just walks around and is like, dude, if you want to hang out there, we can. But Cyno now going for a loop around the shield buff. Dharmic Pillars dropped inbound. Use the ult for immunity. Kyrmi getting bullied out. You called it earlier, and it is happening in front of our eyes. Cyno just chases down Kyrmi and shuts him down. Inbound helps get Stuart out of there, but now he's going to pay for his insolence. Dies for his teammates. It's a 2-0 swing. The Ferrymen, all of that for a shield buff. Maybe they can start up a Fury. They're starting to walk that way. Snoopy is rotated in, but fresh off his death, the Ferrymen are feeling confident. Pull the Gold Fury. Already half health. Snoopy hanging around.
Reset.
And there's just not enough confidence that you can 50-50 it right now and find the win. So the Ferrymen, like you said, reset.
Yeah, no dueling dragon available for Snoopy, but difficult to lock down those cooldown timers, especially with Sands of Time and Sphere of Desolation already finished. No assist, so maybe you could have done the arithmetic, but you're worried about that dueling dragon stealing away just about over everything that Styx Ferrymen could have thrown at it. Paul, a whole lot of burn potential, not a whole lot of secure, especially when compared to that Huang, as well as Stu hovering nearby with his ultimate. So plenty of steal opportunities for the Gilded Gladiators, and the Styx Ferrymen had already won such a significant battle on the left-hand side. I don't think it was worth risking a Gold Fury that would have essentially just erased all the effort they had put in. That said, that battle, I think, dictated by one thing and one thing only, and it's a routing diff between these junglers. Kyrmi, involved a bit earlier in the fight, stands in that 3v3. He's right there with his allies. Cyno has an amazing flank. Catches Kyrmi on the rotation out, separates the engagement, throws up that wall, buys time, and from there the Styx Ferrymen able to overtake the Gilded Gladiators just in pacing. I mean, they ran over him, caught up to him, and made it look easy.
What's interesting is double the kills, only like 400 gold, nothing too crazy in their favor. You can see maybe some of that first blood bounty really paying off early on, but since then has not done too much. Cyno now slowing down Scary D in the solo lane. The Rin doing a lot of damage alongside Baskin. Knock up, that's enough. And the gank goes well. Cyno, look, I was having a couple of doubts in my mind about the Nike, but so far Cyno's stepping up above and beyond.
Yeah, I was not expecting enough damage to deal with our Hercules. Might be because we haven't got that breastplate just done yet for Scary D. Once he finishes up that itemization, you'll have a little bit more of an easy time surviving in some of these fights. Baskin, though, has the ability to shred away a bit of that defense, so maybe Cyno can continue to rotate through. Speaking of Cyno, a departure from the standard.
Yeah.
Arendite in second slot. It's a ton of power, a little bit of CDR, some more chase down potential. I don't hate it for what Cyno's been doing so far.
I mean, you got to think, right, if your ult is slowing people down and then now all of a sudden you're chasing that dude you just slowed down even better. Damage-wise, look, you had mentioned bullying Kyrmi. Feels like he's just going to be able to do that a little bit better. Hydra's now finished, though, for Kyrmi, so maybe some power spikes that's going to happen over there. We're really starting to look towards that level 12 mark. I'm really interested a lot in support relics, which might just be personal bias because I play support, but also where these teams are going with them, as well as some aggression inbound.
That was close.
Still having to play a little carefully, though. Cyno not investing too much. Actually, might be over-investing because of placement. Already used the leap. There's going to be the shield to try and get out. Good knock-up comes from Kyrmi. Cyno leaps barely away, but no, the birds are enough. Inbound, he might go down, but he gets a worthwhile trade in the process. Beats, used by Snoopy, forced to fall back. Purple invade from the Ferrymen. It looks like that's what they're going to call it on. 1-for-1 trade. They get the purple, but they lose their jungle.
Yeah, over-aggression from Cyno, just trying to apply some poke, maybe a TKO to set up for the Gold Fury. Puts him out of position, a massive rotation from the Gilded Gladiators, and a great punish there. The kamikaze attack from Inbound, though, I think, really facilitated by that second item, that Wing Blade. Walks through the Dharmic Pillar, says, I'm faster now. Chases out Cyno, able to secure the kill. Baskin, I don't think he's in trouble here, but certainly not having any fun as he's forced to retreat.
And it feels like this has been, I think, the case of a lot of this lane. At least in the one-on-one, Scary D has been controlling it more often than not against the Horus. Does not fare well in lane, though. The two deaths so far have been because Cyno's showed up, caused a little trouble, gives a small lead over to Baskin in terms of experience. Still no massive objective pull as of yet. 12 minutes in. Cyno, you had mentioned it earlier, the damage.
It's like that?
Yeah, it's now over in favor of Kyrmi. And the classic combo with the Aphrodite attached is going to give them the confidence to go for the Pyromancer. Damage is there. And looking at Paul, I don't think they're trying to walk over here too often. Maybe something over the wall, but the Gladiators going to secure that before Paul can get his casts off. And they're starting to pull this game a little more closer to even after a small deficit of gold for the first 12.
Yeah, Cyno should not be dying like that, Gore. I mean, the damage up from Kyrmi, great. The auto cancel's perfect. Kyrmi executes on it as perfectly as you could ask. I mean, he does everything right there. Cyno could just leap over a wall, and he's gone. He could throw up that HP shield a little bit sooner. Probably would have survived as well. Instead, I believe, tries to hold on to that ultimate, as it is his most significant team fight tool, wants it for maybe a fight around the Gold Fury or one of these gank attempts. So gets a bit greedy there. Caught out, loses his life. The rotation from Inbound, of course, also very useful, not only to help secure that kill, but to secure the disengage for Kyrmi. Not only is it protections to your link target, but also MP5 and movement speed, and that movement speed, essentially just a getaway car for Kyrmi in that jungle engagement. Gotta see more from Cyno now. This Erendite pickup is a massive power spike. It's time to start leveraging it.
Swing your weight around. Maybe see what you can get done. Inbound. Might have been the target. Snoopy has rotated in. Scary D and Kyrmi. I mean, everybody's here at Cyno. There's nowhere to go. He has to run deep. Uses the blink. Goes between the tier 1 and tier 2 and mid. Now trying to get out of here. Knockup should be good from Kyrmi. Goes for max damage as well. Leap over the wall. It's good enough. And it gets you to the waiting arms of Paul, your savior. And if you're Cyno, you're walking away pretty happy. You had to expend a lot, but you're alive.
Yeah, I love the usage of Ren there to make sure that pullback from Kyrmi doesn't connect. Immediately the pre-beads. No way Typhoon knocks you up there, so good usage of his tools to escape. Perhaps unnecessary had he been positioned a little bit safer there. Good rotations to Gilded Gladiators essentially forced that entire exchange. The Styx Ferrymen, no one could have kept up. He's just too fast, Cyno that is. So no one could have peeled out for him. The only escape path Cyno had was retreating all the way across the map towards Paul. And he finds his line, and he finds it well. But these small wins, these air quote small wins, the survival, not exactly what you're looking for from a facilitator jungle like
Especially
Nike.
after you just said big plays, right?
Yeah,
like you're looking for something a little flashier.
He's going defense as well, Gore. I mean, feels like a concession now where these first 2 items you really would have liked to have played while you're around that strength level. Now that you're starting to move in towards defense, you're only going to fall further behind Kyrmi in damage output. Not exactly tanky either. And if they so choose, they have not. But if they did, the Gilded Gladiators could have picked up a Sunder or an Ankh or something along those lines to even further deal with that HP shield. Instead, won't be the case. No, there is a Sunder, excuse me, for Inbound. So Cyno's not a tank, and he's not exactly going to be doing the most damage either.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of the things that you're looking for out of a Nike and or a jungler there, where we might not be seeing a whole lot of over the next few minutes.
But the first 6 minutes of this Nike were very
really
good.
Great.
Were very good. The facilitation, the potential. I think had his early game gone better, he probably would have gone all damage.
Well, Stuart sent up in the sky, throws down some shots, has help from Kyrmi. But it's locked in the Darbic Pillars. There's going to be a good knock-up, but it forces the ult out of CycloneSpin. Damage is there. It's Stuart. He's fallen low. Good save by Inbound. It's just not enough with the onslaught from the Ferrymen, and they're picking up a little bit more than just Stu. They find Snoopy as well, and the chase is on. Good knock-up from Cyno immediately onto Kyrmi, and a little bit more damage gets the kill. That
Cyno!
One over towards Baskin. Cyno somehow walks out of this one alive, and Inbound is doing his best. He's trying to keep him alive, but he just can't do it. They get another kill, and not a single ferryman falls off of this earth. And now Inbound, the hardest thing to do as an Afro support, watch while everything falls away from your jungle, and watch as the other team walks up to the Gold Fury knowing you can't do anything about it.
Man, I thought that fight was going to go so well for the Gilded Gladiators. Once Aror had dashed backward and delivered Kyrmi to his own backline, Typhoon gets channeled. But CycloneSpin had the answer. Immediately goes into that death from above, avoids all the damage, returns twofold what was coming his way. And the Styx Ferrymen, with a rotation from Baskin, are able to turn things around entirely. Cyno as well gets involved, secures those kills with his high CC output. And all of a sudden, the Styx Ferrymen, who are starting to have some concerns, like moving into the mid game. What's this Nike going to do? I mean, they flip it all on its head.
Yeah. Don't know if I'm as worried. Aror, Darbic Pillars in mid. No way, he gets aggressive. Yeah, he's got backup, and they're working for him. Kyrmi, tunnel vision's in on Aror. Baskin and Cyno just loop around. And you can't get more standard of a gank than that. Walk into the lane, get the kill, shut the jungler down. Pyromancer now an open objective. And it looked like the Gladiators were maybe trying to sniff this out, pull it a little bit ago. It's going to go towards the Ferrymen. They get a Runic Bomb. And Mifflin, at worst, they're losing the tier 1 and left from Stuart's split push.
Yeah, I mean, that's not so bad. CycloneSpin still ahead of Stu, so even not having that tower, I don't think concerned with the pace of his lane. I wonder if CycloneSpin were a bit closer to the middle of the map. could perhaps be talking about a Fire Giant pool here. Instead, it's the Styx Ferrymen taking their bomb and heading back to base, reset to neutral. Baskin, the one holding on to it. I mean, when your Soul Laner's there, that means you are fully committed to the fight, so having him with the Runic Bomb could bode well for the Styx Ferrymen. But generally, this early in the game, you'd want someone who's a bit more involved to pick up the bomb. Maybe you toss it towards Cyno, so you can apply it to either of these lanes, as Baskin will be largely relegated to playing towards either the center or right-hand side of the map. I say largely because the global presence from Horus makes it very difficult to lock down exactly where he's rotating. The Gilded Gladiators not removed from this game, though, Gore. They've certainly got fight-back potential, and I think it is entirely rooted in Kyrmi and Scary D. Generally, it's your initiators, I think, that can make the difference when the game is this close, but still starting to slip away. I would put Inbound in that conversation, but he's there just to facilitate. I mean, Kiss, good at keeping one of your allies alive and maybe stopping the channeled abilities of the Styx Ferrymen. If Paul wants to use Fire Stance or Ren from Cyno, both can be prevented. Get a good look at it now as the Styx Ferrymen. They're pushing the issue early. This is a significant grouping. No fire and potentially a siege. Generally, when you group up like this, it's so that you can create space for Gold Fury, but we're a ways off the Gold Fury. I think this might be a legitimate attempt at the Gilded Gladiators Tower. That's what I would have said had they not immediately walked away.
It was like a little heat check, right? Like walk up. Okay,
yo, you guys here?
Yeah, you gonna do anything about it? And yes, they were.
That's a ding-dong ditch. They opened the door. They checked, you know, the Gilded Gladiators. They're there to defend. They're like, all right, I'm heading out, actually.
Try not to mess around too much. They get the tier 1, though. And again, makes up for the one they just lost a few seconds ago. Now they're going to take the tier 1 in mid. Swing a couple towers. That's all the first line of defense from the Gladiators off the board. So with 3 towers left, it's only the tier 2s. Like you said, though, maybe aggressive for a team that didn't have a Fire Giant. Still, 5,000 gold. Maybe going to grow a little bit further. 30 seconds until we have another Fury. About a minute and a half for a Pyro. Fire Giant's just sitting there waiting for someone to dare and take it. At this point, though, you had mentioned, and I think this is kind of good to go back to, not just, maybe we'll have to hold that thought. No, yeah, Stuart's not going to go in here. Not just wanting to see more of the Hercules. You had mentioned earlier how not having the defense as early as you could in the build changed things up. But now, and it's specifically kind of going in, you've got a little bit of defense on both sides, right? And you've got that Vital Amplifier, which one of the newer items, Season 10, right? Health. It's got attack speed on it, which feels a little interesting for Hercules.
One of the 50 new items, by the way.
Yeah, but being able to get attack speed, basic attack damage that stacks up, is that like the balancing act, I guess, right? Like, is this defense now enough to make up for that lack of early defense and give Scary D this capability to run in and maybe solo some people?
I mean, Vital Amplifier early on was really putting in the work up against Baskin, right?
Yeah,
that's where he was struggling. He's stuck inside of his tower. Now, this late in the game, I'm not so certain you're going to find the full value of that passive. It'll help out a little bit, especially against squishier targets.
Yeah.
But it would be way more impactful had the Gilded Gladiators been ahead and been allowed to be the aggressors. So whether or not Scary D's tanky enough now that he's finished up that Spirit Robe, TBD, ask me again after I see him walk into a fight. But 0-3,
Merlin,
I mean, if we're going to go off results, doesn't seem like it.
Oh, we'll maybe find some results here. Inbound. Good immunity. Dodges out a lot of damage there, but that's 2 ults used by the Gladiators. None in response from the Ferrymen. Primal Fury pulled. And there's not a single Gladiator in this arena. Dropped it a little early there, boys, but they still get it. And they get to back off. And Mifflin, I mean, at this point, you know, you're starting to enter this zone where, unfortunately for the Gladiators, Smite's kind of being played at them, right? They haven't been able to choose any of the engagements. It's not a choose-your-own adventure. Everything is being chosen for you, laid out, predestined by the Ferrymen. And they got to break that mold if they want to get into this, especially now the Pyromancer's gone down, giving a second Runic Bomb over to the Chaos team.
Yeah, I'm thinking Fire Giant's not long for this world, Gore, and I'm pretty sure the Styx Ferrymen are going to be the first ones to head over. So far, CycloneSpin has not strayed further away from the left lane than just this purple buff. Now that he's level 20, likely has enough gold in pocket to finish up this item shortly, 1100. So we'll be getting that Heartseeker on this back. It's probably time to start looking towards the Fire Giant itself. And the Styx Ferrymen, confident, I think, in their damage output, survivability, and initiation potential. Just go ahead and pull it. if the Gilded Gladiators don't show up quickly. I've already talked about the burn. Merlin brings plenty. So does Ganesha. So we'll see. Here's the heat check.
I don't know why, but when you said it is time, I imagined like a Mufasa-esque face in the cloud, like deep voice booming, coming to CycloneSpin to let him know that you can leave lane. It's not only safe, it's honestly advisable. There's not a single Gilded Gladiator around.
Scary threw a boulder.
Yeah, he threw a boulder. So the Styx Ferrymen get the Fire Giant. Scared, he throws his ult out. They do get a tier 2 on the other side. The Gladiators put a little pressure on left, get about 1,500 gold back for their troubles.
I think that's worth.
Well, that's the question. If you can defend all these tier 2s, theoretically, that's a hard ask, though.
Big if there for the Gilded Gladiators. Can they defend a tier 2? Non-standard support. I mean, Huang's pretty decent here. Haven't seen a whole lot from Snoopy since he got soloed a little bit earlier this game. I mean, Dueling Dragons can pull someone out of position. Scary D can do the exact same thing. Who is the target that you want to pull out of position, though? It feels like Aror might be a little bit too difficult to shut down at this point. Baskin as well, incredibly tanky as he's starting to approach a true 6 slot. Jumping on a CycloneSpin and Paul, always going to be ideal, but never easy.
Nope.
The backliners of the Styx Ferrymen, historically very safe players and great in situations like this. What is the ideal situation for the Gilded Gladiators? It's got to be displacement. Just do the classic, what was it called? Like the OG 5 Sobex on the assault map, keep pulling them back.
Yep.
You got 3 pools here on the Gilded Gladiators. You could really ruin one guy's day.
Honestly, it'd be fun. I was thinking maybe that interaction was going to be over on left, right? CycloneSpin, Kyrmi, alone at the time. Now Cyno has rotated over there.
He's not tanky, by the way.
Provided some safety. Yeah, I guess that gives us the answer to the question.
Well, he's tanky now, though. He's got Afro.
Yeah, so he gets the little bit of extra. It's just not enough. Kyrmi takes half his health bar defending the left side Phoenix. We had already asked, by the way, answered. Tier 2 on left goes down there. Aren't able to defend them all. Now it's just whether or not you can get in and get a Phoenix with this FG as well. There's one pull back, a second pull back. The first one goes under the Phoenix, but it's met by a leap. The second one goes into a wall. It doesn't have enough follow-up. The Ferrymen abandon the left side Phoenix Siege, instead go for a tier 2 in mid. They've got 50 seconds left on the power play. And this looks like it could just be a rotation. Whether it's through the jungle, should be over towards that tier 2 and right. Try to get the maximum amount of gold, and then probably reset for the next FG.
Yeah, next FG looking pretty easy for Styx Ferrymen. Easier than the previous, at least. Pick up a tier 2. I'd like to see them grab this Fury very soon. Potentially even look for a bit more pressure here. You don't want the Gilded Gladiators, if you're the Styx Ferrymen, to be able to get anything on map right now. The Ferrymen have done a great job of clearing out the entirety of right side jungle, even taking away that rogue camp, red buff. All the neutral farm on the right-hand side as well belongs to them. But the Gilded Gladiators are now afforded an option, whereas previously it was spin your thumbs on your side of the map and hope that that Fire Giant doesn't go down with Scary D throwing out a Hail Mary ultimate. This time you've got this as an option. At least grab yourself a bit of global gold. But with Cyno there, I'm not sure you're grabbing it.
And nobody peeked around. Why would Cyno be there? They didn't have an answer. They didn't expect it. Now, oh, they're going to pay for it. Snoopy, the one who couldn't get away there. The Gladiators just try to get something in their favor. And it pulls a lot of utility media. You know, Stu gets out alive. Kyrmi had to use ult and a relic, and then 2 relics down there for Stu. So Mifflin, it's only 1 kill. It's 8,000 gold. Probably about to approach and maybe surpass 9,000 with this Fury. And then the Pyro. And then the Fire should put it over 10K. It's the question that we have to ask. I mean, at that point, you see a little bit of life from the Gladiators of let's get something done. They tried to surge forward and stop and control some of the backs on right. Where do they draw the line now? Do you step up to this Fire Giant? Like, is the game lost if you don't go for a Hail Mary play, or can you do something around your Phoenix line?
The base defense that we had just seen on left side Bird, I think just strong enough that the Gilded Gladiators likely will not step up to this Fire Giant because they pose a significant threat to Cyno in particular. I think they can feel confident in their ability to perhaps defend. Confident's not the right word.
Yeah.
It is their best chance at winning the game is to defend their base now. But it's not significant odds. It's not betting odds. It's just the best they can do. So play defense, stay strong, Pulling Cyno out of position certainly can work. He's not getting the full benefit of his Protector of the Jungle. It's only the Winged Blade. So you've got the ability in the CC on the side of the Gilded Gladiators to shut down one of the frontliners of Styx Ferrymen, but just the one.
Oh, it's absolutely wild. So first off, 3 Runic Bombs. You know, we're talking about Cyno being like the tactical nuke. That's the actual tactical nuke, right? If you drop all 3 on the Phoenix,
it's gone.
At that point, yeah, it's either gone, maybe they deal with 1, and it's still gone because you've got a carry behind you. But then on top of that, like 3 power pots were just bought by the Ferrymen. That's how far ahead they are right now, as far as gold goes. 12,000, man. Very difficult to overcome. 28.5 in. They're marching down mid with a minion
Where are they
wave.
going? Right.
And yeah, that's going to be a very easy pickup. Should be an easy call-out, spot-out. Good rotation
It was just
from the Gladiators, but yeah, the rest stepped out, and they just get to walk forward. It's not ultimately opening up the base the way they wanted to. Maybe too close. And so the Gladiators got to rotate to 1, then rotate back just in time. But man, what a good call. Just unfortunately doesn't fall the way they wanted it to.
Yeah, I mean, that works because you have Runic Bombs with the Styx Ferrymen just a bit too far away. We'll see if that cheekiness was required, though, because this fight's going well.
Yeah, damage so far so good. Snoopy, Inbound, Kyrmi, Scary, all of them low health bar, 4 of them on the Gladiators, able to get back to the fountain. Unfortunately for Scary, he's the one who couldn't. And that makes it a little easier. Sieging now. Mid Phoenix gone. Left Phoenix, an easy pickup. Kyrmi goes in for a fight. Gets some decent damage out there. But Snoopy's taking just as much back.
Whoa, Cyno.
Cyno maybe
is fine.
Steps is welcome, but the shielding, the healing, as whatever they have going on for him. The itemization as well. I mean, we were a little curious about the tankiness. Cyno's answering just enough. He's doing enough damage to make it worthwhile. Staying alive long enough that he can get out of there. And it's 2 Phoenixes, 3 Runic Bombs, and about 40 seconds left on the power play for the Ferrymen.
Yeah, Cyno's just a speed demon now. Able to get into that back line so fast. Snoopy shouldn't have been there, bud. The 6 Ferrymen were waiting for you, and now it's Bobby who's in trouble.
Yeah, march forward, try to kill the support. Not try, they're just going to at this point. Stuart, Kyrmi, and a dream right now. Scary D respawns, and maybe could be the saving grace here for the Hercules. The Titans getting low, though. The Ferrymen aren't too worried about the standing Gladiators. They come into their arena, and they take the win in game number 1.
A convincing game. But the first couple minutes, I don't know, felt like maybe the Gladiators had a little bit more to give. But the Ferrymen, in their concise objective play, just controlling the map. Cyno getting hyperactive. I apologize for tossing a question mark on your name, Cyno. I just didn't know your game. You know, 2-das, I doubted you. I shouldn't have, because of the affected kills this jungler had, the space he created on map. The initiation, even in spite of being so squishy, it just all looked good.
Yeah, I think there was a moment mid-game, right, where we're like, okay, this is where if the Gladiators step up, if they can play into the fact that maybe the Ferrymen are slowing things down, the game opens wide. They didn't. And so, unfortunately for them, it becomes a very, like, I mean, Kings-esque grinder, right? The Ferryman just saying, okay, cool, you want to try and fight this objective? That's already gone, man. You want to go for that one? Yeah, we've got this under control. Not a single point did it feel like they were stepping up in a way that was meaningful, and they tried to get the defense. Sometimes it just doesn't roll out. We're going to kick it to a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll have game number 2.
Styx Ferrymen strike first blood up against the Gilded Gladiators, and this best of 3 gets just a bit out of control. I think Gilded Gladiators, they need to cool down a bit after a game like we had there in game number 1. And I've got a great opportunity for the Gilded Gladiators. This right here is an ice shaker. And we got our newest goddess in SMITE, E-Shell, right on the front. And it's, of course, furnished by our friends over at Advanced GG. You can grab yourself one of these ice shakers as well. If you go over to our partner website, Advanced GG. Oh, wait, there we go. Oh, yeah. Now look at that. Now here's the good news. You do a little shaking like this. You do a little shaking like that. A little shaking like this. All while there's some ice inside. And it's going to get your drink nice and cold. It stays cold all day long. It'll cool you down. And look how shiny that is. Ladies and gentlemen, for 10% off, use code SMITE at advanced.gg. And I'm offering, in exchange for one ice shaker, my endearing love and support in exchange for one ice shaker. So I'll let you make that trade. Anyway, thanks to Advanced GG being with us here in Season 10. Use code SMITE for 10% off your purchase. E-Shell ice shakers in stock now, and you can get your hands on one as well. Trelly joins me to break down game number 1 between the Styx Ferrymen and the Gilded Gladiators. And Trelly, it felt like early on the Gilded Gladiators had a couple opportunities to scrap. They were able to find a kill or two. Kyrmi actually off to a wonderful start on the Susano.
Yep.
This game sort of breaks open. There's the left side dual lane fight where the Styx Ferrymen go 4 for 0.
Mm-hmm.
Just cleaner team fighting, and it feels like the game spirals from there.
Definitely some small mistakes from the Gilded Gladiators that started to add up. It seems like a common thread for this team, I guess for the core of this team, where they've got great early games, but they start to fumble towards late. Yeah, Snoopy getting soloed here, not a good look. There was a few.
What's he doing up there?
That's what we were trying to figure out. Why is Snoopy hit the tower line there? That's what the casters were saying, and I think those little small mistakes really did start to add up. Just overstaying your welcome a bit. This was that fight you were talking about. This goes a little bit crazy, where Cyno, I mean, it gets very low. It seemed like maybe he was going to find a death, but no, it really did start to add up. So I'm thinking either A, the Gilded Gladiators have to draft a more late game oriented composition, or not make those little overstays, not like those little oversteps, because the Styx Ferrymen, in my mind, they didn't do anything spectacular. They just played the late game as we know they can, and it didn't really seem like it was ever in contention after they got that small lead and then started building up.
Gilded Gladiators had a 1,000 gold lead despite being down 2 kills on that left side dual lane fight. Did not get another kill for the rest of the game and ended up falling about 15,000 gold behind. And so to call that moment in left, that team fight in left, game-breaking, game-changing might be an understatement. And so the Gladiators, again, good at kind of the early scrappiness of this game, but come group time, that's where the Styx Ferrymen really made their money. Stuart never really had an opportunity this game to step too far forward. Felt like a lot of pressure building up in that lane from early. And ends the game at 0-1. Last one alive at the end of the game. Found some damage. That's my AD carry. Was one Aegis away. One member of the Styx Ferrymen used their Aegis from at least getting me a kill in that game. Instead, minus 0.5 points.
You lost your points.
Minus 0.5 points for Dave's fantasy team.
You're going to have to talk to him after this and just say, hey.
I don't think he wants to speak to me after that game. I think
you're the coach.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sure he cares what his fantasy team's coach has to say. No, this is a Gilded Gladiators team. I don't think, maybe this is harsh, I don't think it's a surprise that they got out-team fought by the Styx Ferrymen team.
No.
Because when we talk about the Gladiators, it's not necessarily a mechanical skill. It's how are you going to play as a team? How are you going to team fight later on in the game? Is the shot calling going to be consistent and up to par with the really veteran world championship caliber SPL teams? That's where the Gilded Gladiators can grow. And might see more of that here in Game 2 as we jump into picks and bans. And so, Trelly, you look at Game 1, you say maybe we draft something a bit more team fighty, a bit more late gamey. The Gladiators going to have the chance to do so out of that first pick slot.
He certainly will. I didn't hate the Aphrodite, but it didn't seem like it got enough value for me either. You really do want to lead into your team fight because, again, the Gilded Gladiators seem to be just fine with getting those early leads, right? They are able to get a solid 1,000 gold, something like that, and then translate that into a small lead. It's just they can't make a big lead out of it. They never seem to be able to say, hey, now that we're ahead, we can force team fights, we can go over to right, pull a pyromancer, things like that, which I think the Gilded Gladiators are going to need to work on. So with that, I think you got two options. You lean into hyper early game and hope the game's over by 20, 25 minutes. And if you can't do that, which against the Styx Ferrymen, it's going to be hard, you got to go more late game oriented, got to go more team fight oriented. And I think that's probably the better idea here for the Gilded Gladiators to try and make some strides into being a full, all-around rounded better squad. Yep. So bans, pretty typical still. Remember last time the Terra did go unbanned, and it really was the Hercules that the Gladiators prioritized. They're going to ban that one away this time. They don't care about Charybdis Herc. They're looking for something different.
That's right. I believe Hell was one of the 6 bans in game number 1.
Yep.
Looks like that could be a pivot here. I'm not sure the Styx Ferrymen all that worried about Aphrodite after the way they handled it in the first game of this set. And still will not be. Surtr takes a seat. Saw some great moments on Surtr just yesterday.
Martichoras.
And Marty, after notching his first win in the SPL in just our previous game, we'll swap on over to Stuart, provide some good damage. And maybe, Trelly, that's good late game damage for exactly what we're looking for the Gladiators.
Yeah, already that's a good step up. Considering the Rama takes a little bit longer to get online, Marty, if you're going that blue stone, that Transcendence build, he really can start swinging 1-2 items in, especially if that Transcendence is stacked up. So I like the look so far. Curious if it's going to go over to Stu or if you're going to play it in mid lane. We've seen 3 games so far, and I believe at least one of them was played in the mid lane. So I have to see how that goes for the Gilded Gladiators, just see, because I think Snoopy again on the Huang was a big miss for me. 0-4, almost less damage than the Afro support. I don't think that Snoopy really got active at all on that pick. Maybe just getting shut down early. It is difficult to play mages from behind as is, so if that's the case, maybe just leaning towards more pressure. But the Marty could go mid, bottom line. And as you called out, that Hell does make it through, but with Merlin grabbed.
Yep.
More than likely a Hell support or even Hell solo going over to Baskin. They've got plenty of options there. And that's interesting. Whenever I see Hell on a Paul team, I usually want it in his hands.
That's right. I'm thinking that's a Paul Hell 9 times out of 10, but 0 times out of 10 when there's also a Merlin there. And Paul clearly in a really good state of mind on the Merlin after what we saw him do in game number 1. So I like the run back mindset here from Paul. This is a big pivot because Baskin had a wonderful Horus game in the first matchup. And now it'll flip sides. Could be for Scary D, also could be for Inbound. Snoopy will get one of the control mages that was banned out against him in the first game, adding in the Agni. So there's going to be good AoE and good ranged poke here, Trelly, from the Gilded Gladiators as this game goes on.
So now here's my question. Are the Gilded Gladiators playing their own style? Are they playing their own game? Or are they just trying to take away what the Styx Ferrymen were doing, right?
That's a precarious spot to be in, right?
It doesn't seem like when you get, I'm not going to say blown out because they had some success, but when you get beat like that in game number 1 and then you pivot your draft into let's just take away what they did and hope it works for us. Like I said, you gotta get that early pressure. So far you got the Marty, the Horus, and the Agni. Not too much. I'm gonna need to see something very active from Kyrmi, assuming that the Horus doesn't go that way into the jungle, which usually it doesn't. The Susano was fine, but you're not gonna have that Aphrodite anymore. So you gotta have something that wants to get active in the early, something that wants to dive this Hell. That's why that Surtr was banned away, right? They knew healing was gonna be their style. The Ferrymen, that is. They've got the Hell, they've got the Guan. And I'm thinking anti-heal is going to be something that the Ferrymen are prioritizing getting rid of, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with how much could come their way.
Whoa.
Looks like they're just going to take away the Baka and the Hunbats. They just want to focus out Kyrmi.
Kyrmi was the force for the Gladiators early in game 1. Limiting that any way possible, always going to be a good look. If Kyrmi really feels like Susano is it, could be the run back. But might not be the best of circumstances for Kyrmi. Nike, that was the option for Cyno in the first game, and Cyno also had a wonderful match in game number 1. So the Gladiators are responding in kind. They've taken away some of the important utility pieces that the Ferrymen had work, whether it's the Horus, the Marty, banning out the Nike. Charybdis locked in for CycloneSpin. Hasn't won just yet. Seen a couple of games of it. We both were Zapman for the Leviathans. Unfortunately hasn't notched that first dub in the SPL this year just yet. but still has its value, Trelly.
Certainly does. This is an annoying composition to go up against. A lot of safety, a lot of sustain, and also plenty of damage on the side of the Styx Ferrymen. And we get to see what the Gilded Gladiators are leaning towards. They've been holding Kyrmi's pick. He took, I mean, so far, technically 4 bans from the Ferrymen if you count the Vamana jungle, which is a possibility. So we have to see how deep he wants to go into that God pool to try and deal with the amount of sustain and just safety so far that the Ferrymen have. Again, I think that Susano's fine here. It's just you have the same problem where if you're going into the backline and you're going to get CC'd, you're going to have some trouble, but it looks like Kyrmi doesn't care. And he said, let's run it back. And there's also a Cthulhu hover here, which would be some great team fight damage. If you get some anti-heal, it does a good job of running down the hell as well.
Was it Inbound's?
Yep. I know what you're going to say. It wasn't even a bit. He believed it.
Inbound's belief was Cthulhu support, right?
His belief verbatim was Cthulhu support is better than Ganesh support because he's got more CC. And he picked the Cthulhu support and it got waxed. And he said and he said it wasn't because Cthulhu's bad. It's just it would have if I picked Ganesh it would have went worse. That was his
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't believe him.
I think I still bet on Horus support over Cthulhu support.
Yeah.
I'm just opening that door. I'm saying it's something we've seen in the past from Inbound. Surtr, the final pick of the draft for the Styx Ferrymen. So one of Surtr and Guan Yu will be in the jungle, I assume. I'm trying to think of any other way that this comp would work. Hell support would be my guess. Is there an obvious answer in your mind, Trelly, that I'm potentially just missing here?
No, I'm thinking it's Surtr jungle and the hell support. It not obvious, but it just does seem to be the way to go. I've seen a lot of Surtr support in my ranked games. It can pop off. It's a early game bully. It's just that damage does end up falling off. If you're level 20 against a level 20 Susano, you're probably losing that 1v1 if the Susano plays it correctly. So I'm thinking the Ferrymen are going to want to win this game early. And, I mean, if they just repeat what they did in game number 1, that seems to be just fine to me. They've got plenty of sustain. They've got plenty of damage towards objectives. It's all going to be about the Gilded Gladiators making that adaptation towards team fight. And they've got some good team fight now. I think that Scary D on this Cthulhu, or I suppose Inbound on this Cthulhu, are going to bring a certain level of disruption to a fight, which they desperately needed.
Yep. This would be a good game if it ends up being Cyno on Surtr. This would be a good game to watch Cyno's POV over on his Twitch channel for this matchup. I'm just imagining, it's probably not the most viable way of initiating ganks. I'm just imagining a Surtr long Thor dunking into a lane with his ultimate because technically has the semi-global presence, but a bit more telegraphed, I think, than an Anvil of Dawn. Also, you get the giant, horn sound every time he goes up into the air. I'm ganking you, by the way.
You get the sound, you look up, you see the meteor coming, and then the fire imps falling
maybe
from the
Blink
sky.
Stun might be a more viable option for Cyno. Compositionally, as a whole, Merlin, Hell, Guan Yu, Charybdis, Surtr, plenty of healing for the Styx Ferrymen. Do you think there's enough team fight later in the game to deal with what the Gilded Gladiators have on the other side?
I do think so. The Styx Ferrymen have diversified their damage a fair bit. They have this sustain, but with that comes the damage. And the cleanses are going to be super annoying for Kyrmi trying to get to the back line. The Gilded Gladiators, it looks like they have a lot of CC, which they do. The Horus, Agni, and Susano should be able to pull beats pretty regularly, but as long as this hell is on point with the cleanses, I think that does put a little bit of a damper on your team fight. If you're expecting a knock-up, if you're expecting a pullback or a stun, and it just gets negated, it starts to get a bit annoying with your dive. So I think the Styx Ferrymen have drafted a very annoying composition to try and fight into, which kind of fits their...
Yeah, that's very Styx Ferrymen of them,
exactly.
Isn't it? The rowboat boys and years have passed and seasons have passed. Haven't shied away from some of the more obnoxious compositions. Was it last year that Titans team, if we're kind of equating this team to the Titans in years have passed, were they the ones who spearheaded the triple AD carry composition? If I'm remembering correctly, they had obviously mid and AD carry, and then Sot was over in the solo lane playing Uller, just whatever AD carry. That might have been that Titans team.
I do remember a lot. I mean, they had Sot play Hunters, and then they would have Cyclone play like Bologna. Then they switched up. They had many different iterations of that squad. So yeah,
annoying, but annoying works for this team, and clearly it worked in game number 1. Annoying is not always a bad thing when you're the team that's playing it. Gilded Gladiators, though, they've got, as I've mentioned, what I assume to be some decent late game poke. You're always going to have that with the Agni. Marty can send out some damage in those long lines. Initiation may be a bit stronger now. You're replacing the Aphrodite with Cthulhu or Horus, Trelly. Is that a net upgrade in your mind?
Definitely a net upgrade for initiation. Your survivability, I guess, for Kyrmi goes down a bit. I think that Horus is always going to be more survivable than the Aphro just by nature of that dash. I think it's like a 6 or 8 second cooldown at this point late game. It's ridiculous. You can just go in, go out so easily. But because of that, I think Kyrmi's life gets a little bit harder. He doesn't have that immunity. He doesn't have that amount of sustain and that amount of setup for him. So he's going to have to look for... He's going to have to be more of a solo agent. You know, he's not going to be constantly linked to an Aphrodite. He's going to have to look for kills himself and understand how much damage he really can do on his own. But I like this Gilded Gladiators draft holistically a lot better than game number 1. I think that the team fight's better. It still can scrap early. And then late game, you're not in a terrible spot if you fall behind.
Who do you think has more... This is good. I'm going to do a rapid fire round with you.
Please do.
Who do you think has more affected kills in the first 15 minutes between Kyrmi and Cyno?
Cyno.
Are we going on Surtr jungle? Is that what we're operating on? We're operating on the assumption that it'll be Surtr out of the jungle?
Yeah, it could be whatever. I just think Cyno knows how to get active and does it consistently.
Okay. I guess the question around support is slightly difficult. Are you leaning towards a Horus support and Cthulhu? I think that would be what I would guess. I'm open to being wrong, though.
I would hope that it's Horus support. Again, we've seen the inbound Cthulhu support. If it worked, then I'd be like, yeah, let's see it. But it didn't work, so I have not seen it. So I'm going to lean more towards the Horus support in hopes, and I think just it brings more to the table. So
more affected kills in the first 15 minutes between Aror and Inbound.
I mean, if I'm going with Cyno getting active, then of course Aror should be getting active more. But if we're counting,
you're such a fanboy.
If we're counting Inbound's possible deaths, then maybe he's affecting more.
I'm not counting deaths as affected kills because you're affecting kills for the opposing squad. Are you predicting an int game? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I'm just saying that I think that
he's affecting kills in a way.
Yeah, Bobby affects kills. He always say what you want about him, but he's going to get in there, and he may die trying. He'll set up for his team. So doesn't mean the Gilded Gladiators are losing if he's dying a lot. It just means that he's getting active.
Over under 2 anime references from the cast, Gore or Mifflin, during this game.
I think it'll be less than 2. I think if it's you and Miff, you guys have a more of a...
You calling me a catalyst?
I'm not saying that. I think that Miff, when you are there, he wants to talk about anime more for some reason. I think because he tries to get you to watch shows. That's why.
He does, and he's 0 for like 3 on his recommendations. Very correct. I don't know if you can hear Mifflin over my mic. Blue Lock's average, Miff. And he begged me to watch it for so long. Gilded Gladiators. You look at this composition: Scary D, Kyrmi, Snoopy, Inbound, Stuart. Is priority 1. If you're the doctor, you're prescribing something to this team here for game 2 and for the rest of the season, on limited, admittedly, amount of games. Is team fight, late game, mid to late game objective style fighting prescription number 1?
I think we have both of these teams have some great team fight presence. So if you're looking at just showing up to objectives and actually scrapping, yes, both of these teams have drafted for it. The single target picks, in my mind, doesn't look as good for the Ferrymen because Surtr's got damage, yes, but he's not going to 100-0 you and then do it quickly. He is more of a, I'm going to stun you, sort of scrap chase you down, I'm going to go up into the sky, that sort of thing. Whereas Kyrmi, of course, we all know Susano just gets to the back line and can quite literally 100-0 you before you even have a chance to use your relic. So if we're looking at the team fight present, I think both of these teams have made sure that their 5v5 around objectives is going to be pretty solid.
Well, if you're at home and you're saying, I've listened to these dudes talk for just a bit too long, it's because we're remaking the lobby. We're going to get right into game number 2. Between the Styx Ferrymen and the Gilded Gladiators here very shortly. So appreciate you for sticking with us. Which player POV would you tune into? Granted, for the Gladiators, you get Stuart, Inbound, Kyrmi, and then I believe everyone but Paul for the Styx Ferrymen. Of those 7 options, who you watching?
I'm watching Cyno just because, and don't say I'm a fanboy. I just think Surtr Jungle is gonna bring some interesting POV. I want to see what he thinks about. He's gonna hold the rock, or I guess the fire imp if he picks it up. Yeah. He's gonna stand around a wall and be like, "Can we fight?" And then he's gonna be like, "Yes, no." If so, he's gonna throw it in, go up to the sky. That's gonna be dope to watch from his point of view.
That is true. Is that okay? You're playing. Maybe you need to watch the POV to really figure out how this is gonna work. Are you ever ganking with his ult, or do you think that's just way too telegraphed?
No, I think, well, it's situational. If you're sitting there and you look over and you see Scary D just descends into madness, he just dashed away and he's backing at tower line, yeah, I might land on him, give him a good bonk, and then you try and chase him down. But if he's got everything up and you just look up and see the sky, you're like, oh, yeah. I've got a good 3 seconds to get out of here before he lands, and then you're fine. So I think if my escape is down, yeah, maybe I'll go in.
Charlie, I think we've analyzed just about everything we can analyze in this game, so I'm going to ask you a question here. Who do you think is the most ferryman member of the Styx Ferrymen? If we're taking into account they need to be seaworthy, they got to be able to stay on a boat, not get super seasick.
Right.
What else do ferrymen have to do? They got to be able to
collect fare.
Right. The best ticket collector, maybe. Yep. Who do you imagine would be most imposing if somebody tried to skirt around the ferry tax? And who could row the longest?
Do they have to be aggressive? Do you have to?
No, but they're strict in their rules.
I would like to get on Aror's boat. If he was sitting there instead of said, tickets please, or pay the ferryman, I'd give him change, and he would chat to me about how long he's been doing it. And
it felt like an eternity, right?
Yeah. I think it'd be a nice time. But if you're saying they have to be able to shake me down if I don't pay, then Aror wouldn't want to do that.
Yep.
He's not the kind of guy who would want to rob me.
I'd be on Aror's ferry as well. An update on the lobby. They are in picks and bans currently, so we're just a couple of minutes away from getting into game number 2 of the Ferrymen versus the Gilded Gladiators. Luckily, they can't change any of their picks or bans at this point, because that would make our life maybe easier, but more difficult. I don't know.
We've analyzed so much about their current draft, it just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, we'd just have to redo it all. Baskin looking unconcerned with the matchup that they've got. Of the 3 members of the Gilded Gladiators that we have in studio, you got Kyrmi, Inbowned, Stu. Who's the most gladiator of those 3?
Yeah.
It might be Inbound.
It is Bobby, and it's just because I know the other 2, they don't want to scrap. Stu says he's got hands, but in reality, he doesn't want to fight.
Are you talking about real life scrap?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're saying they're gladiators, man.
Yeah, that's true. They don't want to.
I'm not saying Bobby wants to fight actively, but when we talk to Stu, he always says, I have the fastest hands, but that also means he's got the fastest
Bobby's
feet,
always punchy, you know what I mean? And I mean that in a mental, that right there, that's just the Inbound mental.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it'd be really easy to coerce him into a gladiator ring, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, yes, something like that. Gladiator versus ferryman, those 2 entities in real life. Do you think a ferryman versus a gladiator, who wins?
I think a gladiator should have that, unless the ferryman
has
some sort of...
ferrymen have mystical powers.
That's what I was saying. If the ferrymen have some power where they're like, oh, you didn't pay the ferryman, and now I can...
No. What? Okay, Mifflin just asked, you think driving a boat makes you magic? You're forgetting the entire lore of what a Styx ferryman is. No, it's my guy who's rowing people into the afterlife.
Yeah, can we look at the picture? That's not some dude.
Yeah, that's
a ghoul of sorts.
It's a demon, maybe.
Yeah.
That is just a dude.
Yeah, that's just a dude.
The guy's got a golden shoulder. I think Styx Ferrymen, I think they've got a good chance in a battle to the death. They will usher the gladiators to their death. All right, getting into game right now. We've had our fun. We can recenter on game number 2 so we can provide some actual insight before jumping into game. We've said a lot of words, Trelly. I think with play on field after game 1, in general, a well-rounded composition from the Styx Ferrymen, I think I favor them to take game 2. Are you feeling similar?
Yeah, I think that the sustain is going to be annoying to deal with. I think they've got the team fight presence. I think that Cyno will be getting a little bit more aggressive than Kyrmi in the early, but I love what the Gilded Gladiators have done with this draft. If this was, because again, we don't have much data on this style of comp for the Gilded Gladiators. I think this team comp holistically has a chance team fight wise to just wipe the floor, but it seems to me like they cherry picked the things they didn't want to deal with from the ferrymen and just said, we're gonna put it on our side. So I have to see if they can play these gods.
Right, provided that it's also something they're comfortable with. Exactly. It's actually a good draft here from the Gilded Gladiators. Yep. But that's what we talked about in game 1, is that we appreciate the Gladiators playing their style. Is this also the Gladiator style? We will await no longer. Game number 2 between the Gladiators and the Ferrymen.
Thanks so much, Dave and Trelly and Myth. There's a lot to unpack there. I don't even know how much of it you want to unpack.
Yeah, I mean, driving a boat does not make you magic. I didn't ask him to watch Blue Lock, and yeah, Stu does not have hands.
Does that count as one of the anime references? Is him saying that? Okay. You know, the reason me and you, at least, don't get as much maybe into anime references on is because most of the time we've watched them if they came out, and I message you say, hey, dude, this is real good, and you go, yeah, it's really dope.
It's easy.
I kind of want to rewatch Bocchi the Rock now.
Dude. Such a good anime.
It's so good. The animation's sick. That one's definitely worth a little bit of rewatch. And there, that's 2. So Charlie's wrong, and that's what matters most here. Is that we proved him wrong. I guess we're gonna have to last off-game comment.
Yeah, I mean,
for now
we got 5 seconds till the game even starts.
There was I can't remember what it was. There was a show that would take the idea of like, oh hey, who would win, like a samurai or
Deadliest Warrior.
Deadliest Warrior. What if we could do a Deadliest Warrior
with Smite players?
But well, with the mascot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just can't imagine a boat driver beating a dude who did a fight for his life every day. The gladiators fought lions.
That dude's got muscle. That guy's a skeleton.
Yeah, gladiators literally fought like lions and bears and other gladiators. Like, good luck.
We're in game here. It is Surtr in the jungle. The gladiators down a game. I do want to ask you about the jungle matchup. Last time it was Nike, you had mentioned the fact that Nike can actually chase down the Susano pretty well and cause a lot of trouble for him. Can Cyno still do that on something like a Surtr?
You know, I've played Surtr jungle a fair bit because, as every jungler will tell you, we just don't get a whole lot of them, so we force every god into the jungle just to see if it'll work. Surtr jungle is not about a long fight. It's not about chasing out. If you have to use your ultimate, it almost feels like a concession, and you're so seldom using your ultimate to get into lane. What Surtr jungle is about is blink, auto attack, immediately stun, and use your 1 and pray that they die, and if they don't, instant pop your 3 twice, right? If they're immobile, you keep your 3 active so you can chase down a little bit easier, but if they've got a leap, you're just using it for burst. Surtr is very good at that style of play. Paul just knocked down by Kyrmi. Left alone by Cyno, who heads over to the left. The Gilded Gladiators take that 2v1 in mid. What makes Surtr so strong, though, is a mini-game. He's unique in Smite in that his first ability has a passive on it, where any minion that is killed while affected by the burn will add up. I believe it's a max count of 200 or 300, which every stack gives you additional damage on that first ability. If you're on the mark with it, and you're able to keep that stacked up pretty consistently throughout the early game, it's doing upwards of like 40% of someone's HP if you're going a full damage build. It really reminds me, for you OG Smite fans in the chat, of the original Loki, just like big burst on the 1, the vanish, the bleed from that. It's been nerfed throughout the years, but I think Surtr, so long as he's on point with that minigame, and it's not always easy, he can get up to those numbers.
Aror in trouble. The hell this game. Last game it was Inbound on the Aphrodite that took a little bit of extra poke, especially early on. Seems like Aror's faring a little bit better than what Inbound did. The healing may be a little stronger for the hell still. So outside of the early first blood, it's tampered down a little bit. But that was a very clean kill on DePaul. I think he was deathless last game. And so finally shutting down that Merlin. Forcing the beads as well, 80 seconds, that maybe. Especially with Kyrmi going to be hitting 5 relatively soon. Should be able to show up in mid just in time to maybe cause some havoc. Do you expect this game to go kind of similar pace to the last one, though? I mean, admittedly, towards the end, it got out of hand for the Gladiators, but early on, it felt like they kind of wanted to fight, but never really did. Meanwhile, Cyno would just show up in a lane and decide to kill someone, and it almost always ended up working out for the Ferrymen. Do you think that you can see a little more maybe from Kyrmi? I was hoping for it right here to answer the question immediately, but instead he's just going for the shield buff.
I think Kyrmi certainly has lanes that he could look to abuse. I'm looking at Aror in particular, especially before he gets that first back off, before he can get some of that defense stacked up. This hell very, very easy to gank, and there it is.
No mana, no health, and a lot of damage from the Gladiators. That's going to give them their second kill, but here comes Cyno. And he's got good amount of damage with him. Not enough. Alongside CycloneSpin, who had already used the ult to get a kill in return. So they just force a TKO out of Inbound. It's only the Cleric's Cloak now from Aror, so maybe even slowing down the Hell, opening up an opportunity for another kill soon.
And speeding up Kyrmi, I think, probably the more important of the two. Slowing down Hell, of course, amazing, really good, but that's generally when we're talking about like Hell mid or Hell in solo, where she's going to be stacking up power. In a support role, making sure that you're not getting the defense online as quickly or the CDR, certainly valuable, but you're at the end of the day, you're just killing a support, which is not the most valuable use of your time. Something we could see repeated, though, I think, to be sure. The Gilded Gladiators have done a good job controlling the pace so far this game, but inverse of the previous match, it's kills without a lead. The Styx Ferrymen doing a good job keeping their heads above water. Cyno, we saw his damage output there, does initiate the fight with his ultimate. I believe it was 120 damage from the ultimate. The toss out didn't do a whole lot of damage either. So Surtr gonna need a while before he's actually finding those impact plays, and I think Doug hovered it. I believe Cyno's maxing the third ability first. That's gonna boost his chase down potential.
That ring of fire.
Yeah, that ring of fire. But his actual burst takes a very significant hit here. I've seen a lot of people max out that third ability in solo lane or when you're laning with them anywhere, to be sure. When I've jungled with them personally, and I'm never going to claim that I am even half the jungler Cyno is, I found that maxing the 1 just feels a little bit better. It really simplifies your ability to stack it up. It's your biggest bit of burst for the most part as well. But I trust Cyno. If he's cooking with this could indicate that he's going for a slightly more auto attack build a little bit later on. You know, leverage some of that chase down potential. Jotun's in first slot though. Completely counter to what I just said. That's as ability as it gets.
Oh, maybe it's maybe Jotun's into auto attack. You never really know, I guess. Although maybe you kind of do, because that's the whole point of the builds. We'll see where he ends up opting. 50 seconds left on the blink. Has the ult. Right now, he's getting pulled into a fight. Goes up into the sky. Is the meteor going to go in? He seems to be chasing him down. Looks for Inbound. Inbound though. Up in the air. And finds himself just on the other side of Kyrmi with his own ultimate. I think the collapse from Aror and inevitably Paul, just enough to make the Gladiators rethink whether or not that engagement's worth it.
Yeah, I think it really is Paul there. I am unimpressed by the Surtr damage output so far.
Yeah.
Seems like Cyno loves playing the early game in particular on every single one of his teams over the last couple of years on hard mode. He just picks really difficult to execute junglers throughout the early that scale well into the late game. Surtr, one of the most annoying gods to deal with when he's got some defense stacked up, can leverage all that sustain, feels like his cooldowns are incredibly low as well, and has that get out of jail free card with the ultimate. Until then though, almost feels like the Styx Ferrymen playing without their jungler.
Well, a lot of the things you just listed, to me, stand out as, that sounds like a great solo lane. Yeah, everything you just said, I was like, damn, that'd be a great frontliner to have.
Yeah, he plays warriors, is the thing.
Yeah?
Cyno, that is.
Well, I guess we'll see whether or not it works out for him. But like you said, I mean, damage-wise hasn't been too much. Hydra's star. Somewhere Dave's like running to grab the mic to talk about the icon.
Yep.
Get into it a little bit.
Biggest glow up in Smite. Hydra started Lament.
Still though, damage numbers, I mean 28 stacks. Now 30 for Kyrmi. It feels like I'm expecting a lot more out of the Susano than I am the Surtr so far.
Yeah, I mean, Susano certainly hits a massive power spike, especially once that Hydra is finished up. The auto attack cancels the burst potential. We saw in the previous game, Kyrmi was able to chase out Cyno on the Nike and kill him through the second HP bar of Sentinel of Zeus. So this time around, I think, probably will have a bit of an easier time chasing out that target. Aggression from the Gladiators on the red buff, but it's Bobby left alone.
Yeah, a lot of damage thrown his way. Pulled back in, a couple more autos. That's all you need. Cyno gets himself a kill. Kyrmi is in the jungle. There's a blink. Forward, Cyno throws the imp, and now you're looking for the damage. There's the knock up, but no, it gets immuned out by the meteor, crashing down into the tier 2, and you can't get more cinematic than that. It's 2 picked up for the Ferry.
Just talking about how we're expecting Kyrmi to do a little bit more than Cyno, but What was it that Trelly said on the desk? Cyno's going to be more active, and it doesn't matter what he's picking.
Yeah.
It feels like this might be a situation like that. Cyno just knows his spots. It's the Gilded Gladiators, though, who choose that engagement core. Yeah. It's a red buff invade, essentially into the 3-man core. I was expecting anytime there's a Horus on an invade like that, it's utilize the ultimate to get out. Not the case this time around. Nearly able to get a kill on a Scary D there. Actually catches the dash, Cyno does, with the stun. But Scary D just tanky enough, or just enough sustain, I should say, to be able to walk out of that one. But yeah, disjointed, disengage from the Gilded Gladiators cost them a lot. But a commitment from the Ferryman on the right might just get you back in the game.
Yeah, enough people show up over there. Paul, Cyclone, they're going to see this, but they're showing up way too late to make a difference. CC immunity, good for inbound, and the burn, not enough from Paul. So you send 3 right if you're the Ferryman. You lose out on the Fury, which ultimately, Mifflin, gives us about 1,000 gold now in favor of the Gilded Gladiators.
Hold on.
Vital Amplifier. We saw it last game.
I hadn't thought about how Vital Amplifier plays with Surtr, because you're getting the heal no matter what.
Yeah.
That third ability is going to pick up the heal passive for you every single time. And if you're active in a team fight, I mean, that's 15% additional auto attack damage. Did transition from ability to auto attack, by the way, Gore. So you called it. That's interesting. I got to keep apologizing to Cyno. I just don't know his game, man. I just don't know his game.
Look, if there's anything that we've learned over the years, it is that Cyno's going to do something that at first seems questionable.
You got to give it 10 minutes. Whatever Cyno's doing, you got to give 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
And then, you know, he's going to make his case.
And so far, that case, I don't know, it's being made pretty emphatically.
Is Surtr the best jungler in the game? What's going on? Why does nobody want to fight back? He's squishy.
As of right now, like he said, no one's wanting to fight back. Pyromancer, started up by the Ferryman. Cyno. Around the corner, going up as a meteor. Where is he going to come crashing down? You got a couple people behind you, and that's exactly where he's going to target. Just a little off the mark of hitting Kyrmi, who seems to be his designated target. Aror goes down. Paul getting hazed by 3. Paul gets out of there, but Kyrmi, he does not. Cyno chases that down, helps pick it up. 3 for 3 as far as the jungle goes. Now Snoopy inbound. Scary D fighting back. Squishy enough to kill off the Surtr. CycloneSpin's rotated in. Agni Bomb gonna stun out Baskin.
Oh my God!
Paul goes forward. Oh my God, eats a lot of damage though.
I can't believe Snoopy doesn't dash on that.
And yeah, they fall back still, the Gladiators. Low health bars on both sides. Come out just a little ahead in the engagement.
How much HP does Paul have total, Doug? Help me out a little bit here, because I saw 400 some odd damage off a Flame Wave alone.
So
yeah, three of those, you're killing Paul. And he was doing the exact same damage to Cyno as well. That is a massive heat check for Snoopy. The Ratatouille in second slot, finding a good deal of value already. Had he had just a few more meteors available, I think that's triple or maybe even quadra kill territory for the mid laner, the Gilded Gladiators. Fortunate for the Styx Ferrymen that was not available for him. Snoopy now, I think, has a lot of weight to carry for his team. Should be able to communicate to them, hey guys, I'm in a very strong spot right now. This power spike is massive. I can really secure some of these kills, play around me, get some initiation from inbound, have Kyrmi do the same thing. I think Snoopy might be your way forward from here.
That Fire Imp was hitting a little above his weight grade against the Pyromancer, but it does start a pull for the Ferryman. They drop that, immediately looking to collapse onto Scary D or onto Kyrmi. Scary D is going to get locked down, but has just as much lockdown in retaliation. Descent into Madness, not back up yet. Teleport down still as well. So if you can get a kill onto Scary D, you take out a lot of utility. Instead, it's just a zone out. Looks like another Pyro pull. Mifflin, they're still hanging around, the Gladiators, that is. So step up, looking for the defense. Scary D, inbound, Kyrmi, Snoopy, soon to be Stuart, matching the 5 from the Ferryman. I think it's all for just the Pyro as of right now. Doesn't seem like either team's feeling confident. The Stealth Grass may be doing a little bit of work as well. The Gladiators matching rotations from the Ferryman.
Woo!
Good damage onto Snoopy from CycloneSpin. And that might just be enough to slow down and stop this fight.
I think it might be time for the Gold Fury. The Styx Ferrymen have shown a whole lot of their sustain in these fights. Cyno taking up the objectives, sustaining himself, Aror and Baskin doing the same for him. Has given up so much space, and any poke that the Gladiators take, significant. Kyrmi, Snoopy, down to about 10%, and they'll stay there until they head back to base. The Styx Ferrymen, I think, intelligent in their decision-making there. Group up, force a question that needs to be answered. Are you willing to defend this Pyromancer? If no, lose the game. If yes, well, maybe you can stop us, but good luck fighting through all that defense. So, in doing so, finally find their opportunity to poke out Snoopy and transition into the larger of the two neutral objectives. The Gilded Gladiators make the best of a bad situation. Trade out the Pyromancer on the other side. But the Ferrymen, they're doing a good job playing around their composition.
Winged Blade, 2 games in a row. For Cyno, same slot as well. And seems like it'll be a good pickup. I do want to ask you, because sometimes, you know, we look at the gold, it's like 800 separating them, right? I think it was just a second ago about 1,000. But you can see it bouncing back and forth. The real question I have, and this is one that it feels like it comes down to, I guess, value of what that Runic Bomb gets. But Pyromancer versus like an Oni Fury, getting the Runic Bomb versus getting the 3 waves, is one just heavier than the other? Like, is it easy to weigh those against each other? Or is it all just dependent on where that bomb gets used?
The bomb is the equalizer, of course, in a situation like that, but Oni Fury to Pyromancer, I think, might be the most direct comparison of the Gold Furies.
Yeah.
Standard Gold Fury just going to give you the most resources. Primal Fury going to give you a buff around the Fire Giant. Oni Fury gives you pressure in the towers.
Yep.
Runic Bomb does the exact same thing. One's a little bit more concentrated than the other, so depending on how this Runic Bomb gets used, whether or not it actually secures a tower or even changes up a team fight, perhaps you can use it to steal away an objective. I think there is value, but it's potential energy as opposed to kinetic energy, right?
Yep. And some potential energy over in duo. And that energy starting to manifest as a 4-man gank from the Ferryman. Kyrmi using his mobility well, gets out of there, inbound as well, dashing away. And so it's a heavy investment to get really just the shield buff, but the Ferrymen also stop a push after losing their tier 1 and left. Very similar to how it happened last game, though. I remember the map state looking like this right before things started to turn around for the Ferrymen, so maybe that's an ominous sign for the Gladiators, where that pressure goes. Also very quiet from the junglers so far. I mean, just saw disengage from Kyrmi. Cyno, 3 kills. It's 100% of what the Ferrymen have been able to pick up, but since then, hasn't been as big on the engages, which admittedly no neutral camps to go for. Gives them some time to think.
Yeah, I am waiting with bated breath to see where Cyno takes this build, what the itemization is.
I keep looking down to see another one.
I want to know. I mean, you got to think maybe it's utility from here. I wouldn't be surprised to see just like some straight up defense items in next slot, just to facilitate him sticking around in the team fight longer. Feels like when you're already benefiting from high CDR, good chase down potential and movement speed from the Wing Blade, and 15% additional auto attack damage in idyllic situations, which should be often, thanks to that Vital Amplifier and how Surtr and his heal interacts with himself. Feels like you don't necessarily need to stack up too much damage here, but the opportunity to go towards maybe a Hydra's Lament to increase your burst, play around those auto attack cancels, is there as well. So we'll just have to keep our eyes on it. Cyno's cooking. That's all I know. That's all I know is that he's in the kitchen. He's chefing something up.
Am I doing my math right? So it gives 20% attack speed blank. And then you get another 30% with that buff along with the 15% attack damage that you're mentioning, right? So that's a lot of attack speed. You should be swinging. But maybe that is very much to your point right there, what we get to see. Not super tanky for Cyno. Anytime he's hit with a heal or heals himself,
it's done.
Should be able to bring a lot. Good stun, as you mentioned. Aror taking a lot of damage. Can we go in on this one? They've got enough. Good jukes from Aror. Almost walks out of that one, but you have the Typhoon. That creates a little bit of trouble.
Uh-oh, Kyrmi.
And the 1v1 now with Cyno has some backup, and Paul, you're not getting out of this, and it's a double kill for the mid laner. You might take down Aror, but you cannot stop the rest. Ferryman rushing forward. Stuart forced out of this. Baskin does not seem to want to stop. Scary D goes to the back, finds Paul, finds Cyclone. It's going to be joined by Inbound. And now a 2v3. Paul's getting low. Finally, someone's able to kill him. But look what Scary D has taken in the process. Baskin trying to get something done. That kill on the Paul helps equalize that fight a little more.
Yeah, I was taking a look at the build from CycloneSpin there, and I thought for sure up against Cthulhu, Charybdis would be looking at a kin size, especially now in 10-4/10-3 when the change had occurred, where kin size gets additional damage based off of how much AP or HP your opponent has at max. I believe once you're over that 2,500 threshold, it's 6% per auto attack. Absolutely wild. But instead, it's the standard crit tree. I was more concerned with his ability to deal with the carries of the Gilded Gladiators. I mean, he's going to do a lot of damage to Snoop. Kyrmi, of course, does not win that 1v1. Even looking at Stu, he's got great ability damage, but if it's a boxing match, you really do favor Cyclone just by nature of having crit. But if Scary D's allowed to stay involved in these fights, as long as he did, and he tanked what felt like 3-4 full auto attack rotations from CycloneSpin, it does not bode well for the Styx Ferrymen and their ability to deal with the Cthulhu going forward. Thank you very much, Doug, for the hover. Cyno has elected to pick up that hi-rez Lament. So his burst damage and burst potential, much higher now, significantly higher. We saw Kyrmi survive a good long while after that dunk down from the Surtr. I'm not so sure that's going to be the case anymore.
Yeah, next time you're going to get the dunk, a smack, and if you're still walking after that, then good luck disengaging. It'll only be a couple more autos for Cyno in those circumstances, right? You hit someone like Scary D inbound, maybe still a good chunk, but just not the same. The one thing about the Meteor, and you know, David kind of highlighted it coming into it, he called it like a slower Thor dunk. You can choose where you land, but it still gives you a semi-global presence. Much more telegraphed, much more easy to respond to. But at the same time, it does so much for the team and gives Cyno opportunities to dive the back line without having to deal with like Scary D or inbound.
And it's much easier to aim as well. If there is no leap or blink available for whoever you're dunking on, you're going to hit it because you can aim adjust until the very last second. To the back line goes Scary D and Inbound. Transformation's got to come soon.
And they're on to Paul. There's going to be the Descent into Madness knockups. Good damage is there. They get rid of the Merlin as quickly as possible. Cyno splits the fight, immediately going for Snoopy damage there with Baskin. They fight a lot, but they don't get the kill. Instead, they end up dying. Cyclone bullied out by Scary D as well. Means that the Ferrymen lose 2, almost 3, and are knocked back to base. And an aggressive play from the Gladiators.
Yeah, someone has to figure out the answer to Scary D. You've got Sunder from Baskin. Maybe that'll help out a bit, but if you're forcing your Guan Yu to fight up against the Cthulhu as opposed to diving onto Snoopy or Stu, feels like it's a trade that Gilded Gladiators would win out on, but have been able to win out regardless. Baskin back into the fight, just trying to buy some time. He's tanky.
They've got visual on this. Wards were placed there for the Ferryman. Aror has to play carefully, not a standard tank. He's taking a lot of damage. Speaking of damage, Inbound barely gets out of there. Should be a TKO. Scary D still moving forward now. You've got the Shred. You had mentioned it. Who's dealing with the Cthulhu? The answer right now still seems to be no one. It's just not enough damage to stop Scary. And we saw earlier this year for the play-ins how devastating that could be. I'm thinking of the Camazotz games. Metas have shifted. Gods have changed. But that's the kind of performance he's having. Something that is just unstoppable. 3-0-1. And I don't know if that's 0 changing anytime soon.
It could. There are tools to deal with Scary D on the side of Styx Ferrymen. Merlin is uniquely suited out of the mage column at dealing with Cthulhu, especially in that fire stance. Very good at burning these large HP bars, especially when you're able to consistently land your damage, and you should be. Descent into Madness makes her an easy target. Otherwise, Baskin, Talu Assault really can be a difference maker. The Sunder as well, CycloneSpin. I'm keeping my eyes on that last slot. Likely will be a standard pen option, but could transition into a kin size there. It feels like he's doing enough damage to the squishies already. The kin size would find so much value up against that Descent into Madness. Otherwise, the Styx Ferrymen have done a very good job still of slowing down the Gilded Gladiators. Baskin in particular deserves every bit of credit that we can lot upon him. Being able to re-engage, teleports back into the fight after a complete wash for the Ferrymen. walks into the Fire Giant, not only prevents the Fire Giant from falling, but survives.
Yeah.
It's not an easy task. From there, it's the Gilded Gladiators who need to keep their pressure up. They're in the driver's seat, and they've taken a small win here. 2 runic bombs in pocket. Simplifies. Make that 3, excuse me. Simplifies your Fire Giant secure. Could really just run down a lane if you win a team fight like you did previously, if you're not confident in your ability to out-secure, if you're worried that Baskin is going to run amok in the Fire Giant pit. Much easier to actually take out a structure than it is that neutral objective. And with 3 bombs in pocket, a clean team fight just might get you a Phoenix.
Fire Giant started up by the Gladiators. Maybe giving me a little bit of time to ask you about an item we're used to seeing on a god I'm not used to seeing it on, Baskin. 3 stacks away from a maxed out Transcendence of all things. How do you feel about that? As an item for Guan, that's the real combo here.
Pre-healing change, I'm loving Guan Yu at Transcendence, right? Because your power would scale with your healing, or your healing scale with power, excuse me. Nowadays, it is a stagnant number. Guan Yu's heal, 110 at max rank, no matter what. So that Transcendence there for the stat line and the mana. Baskin, if he's concerned about staying around and involved in these fights, mana sustain, Transcendence solves that issue immediately. And with the amount of healing the Styx Ferrymen have got and how much they've been able to stay out on field, I think that is a significant conversation to have. So smart in that regard. Also a little bit of CDR, some power. It's a great stat stick. You're sacrificing survivability, though. That's the issue. So keep your eyes on Baskin. If he's able to get into the back line and still perform his duties as that initiator for his team, I've got no issue with the Transcendence. If we see him try and dive onto Snoopy or Kyrmi with that cavalry charge and immediately get shredded away, look no further than Transcendence as the reason why he dies so quick.
Definitely eye-opening. This is that, man, the awkward kind of no man's land, right? No neutral objectives outside of the Fire Giant that's available. Both teams wanting to get aggressive but not wanting to throw. Clearing up minions in right. 4 towers left standing for the Ferrymen, tier 1 in mid, and then all their tier 2s. 5 for the Gladiators. All their tier 2s, and then the tier 1. Plus Bastions still in left. Tier 1 in right. Minion waves. Been important in mid, been important in right so far for the last few minutes. And Gold Mifflin is 300. It is not a lot separating these two teams.
Ooh.
Outside of, as you had mentioned, 3 runic bombs. Vision on the map right now in favor of the Ferrymen. Feels like they want to get aggressive somewhere. It's just trying to find where, right? Like, you know, they almost get Snoopy off of that dash. Not able to find him, though. Might be able to force Inbound or Stu or Kyrmi into an awkward spot, but nobody's stepping too far forward. Instead, it's going to be the heat check, Ferryman.
This is bad timing for the Gladiators, Gore. 2 in base.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about the Ferrymen, though, and how we're so much better than them. We got bird's eye view.
Yeah, we can see everything.
And we see everything. We know that there were 2 carries in base there for the Gilded Gladiators. Ferrymen, all they know is that one person's staring them down, and if Bobby's there, the rest of the team likely nearby. So forced to reset. Had they committed, though, I think that probably goes well for the Styx Ferrymen. Call it Ward Diff. Need some more vision on map. And with none in pocket, it's going to be a while until it's placed on map for the Ferrymen. Same on the other side, though. A couple sentries in pocket for the Gladiators, but they're so worried with the Fire Giant, they've lost sight of their enemies. Styx Ferrymen take out the right side, tier 1. And the dance continues. Neither side confident in their ability to actually coin toss the objective. One side should feel confident in their ability to force the fight, though, and it's Styx Ferrymen. They've got so much sustain.
Well, they're going to force it now. Fire Giant half health to pull back. Pyromancer respawned. So is the Primal Fury. I think we could probably ignore the Primal Fury for a little while. Don't think I see anyone going over there.
Unless someone tries to solo it.
But even then, once the audio cue comes off, it feels like it might give away too much, right? Maybe something to be worried about. Pyromancer is very easy, though. It's on this side of the map. Tier 1, as you had mentioned in right, picked up. We see backs from both teams. Small little reset, get the wards back online.
Yeah, but it almost feels as if the Gilded Gladiators are running into an issue of what do we do? Where do we do it, and how do we do it? Who's going to be the one to do it? And that's when you need that clear voice in your comms, that shot caller to say, this is what we're looking for, this is how we find our way in. The Styx Ferrymen are not struggling with that. They're struggling to find the actual opportunity to spring the trap, but as far as decision-making on where to be and how to try and find those opportunities, they're there. They're pulling the Fire Giant, forcing a fight around it, controlling the positioning of the Gilded Gladiators, stripping away neutral farm, Pyromancer, tier 1 on right. And what was a 1,000 gold lead for the Gilded Gladiators before this 9-minute dance has gone the opposite direction now. The Styx Ferrymen now slightly ahead.
Damage onto the FG started this time by the Gladiators. 30 seconds until this transitions from a Fire Giant to an enhanced Fire Giant.
That
Still
poke's crazy.
Had one get taken this game. Invisigrass doing everything that it can here. Baskin takes a little bit of poke. And Inbound uses a small opportunity to go in. Descent into Madness available for Scary D, but the Gladiators, even with the pressure, maybe not wanting to go forward. Now the engage is on Snoopy. Takes a little bit of a hit. Inbound, surrounded. The damage should be there. All you need is the meteor to connect, and it's enough.
It's 3?
From Cyno. Now Cyno might be able to find more. They lose Kyrmi as well. Scary D is slowly getting chunked. It's 3 gone on the side of the Gladiators. Everything comes crushing down around them. Low health bars, but like you said, reset capabilities for the Ferryman should be the Fire Giant.
I wish I could tell you, Gore, what hit Snoopy to start that fight, but he was down to 40, 60%, somewhere in there, before the engagement starts properly. Afterward, it's Baskin, who hits a Category 9 Natural Disaster Sunder that hits not only Scary D, but Inbound as well, and just completely eviscerates the front line of the Gilded Gladiators. From there, the Styx Ferrymen looks so easy, looks so simple for them. Able to chase out and secure their kills individually. A 3-man dunk from Cyno. Maybe the primary issue there for the Gladiators, stacked up a little bit too much in the jungle. With Enhanced Fire Giant on 5, the mid-Phoenix a foregone conclusion. 2 members of the Gladiators just now on the respawn, but not in time. Not in time to put up any sort of defense anyway. So the Styx Ferrymen, it may have taken them a bit longer, but positioning about the same here towards the end of the game.
Serrated Edge is what closes this one out in terms of Cyno's build. Still a few towers to try and work through, although you had called it exactly what it is. It's an Enhanced Fire Giant. Power play for 2 more minutes on the belt. 3 minutes before the respawn. A lot of time to play with, Mifflin.
Aror at 5K? What's he buying? Okay.
So Rod of Asclepius, still 2,100 in hand. There we go. Plus a breastplate of regrowth.
Okay. Yeah, he's really strong now. He's going to be giving his team a
He
whole
had
lot of stuff.
5K in pocket. Like he was
out on field forever.
So much in favor of the Gladiators then, right? Like in theory. Oh man, that's a huge buff.
That is. And you know those 3 bombs we were talking about earlier about whether or not they were going to be able to offset the value of the Gold Furies, the Styx Ferrymen were able to grab? Yeah, those 3 bombs are still there, by the way. The Gilded Gladiators just have not been able to use them. On base defense, they're worthless. I mean, I might sell those bombs. That's 30 gold in your pocket. I'd buy a ward or something. No, you can't do that. You hold on to the bombs on the off chance that you went out of the fight, and it simplifies your own siege. But
and how maybe you just use it for the knock-up and damage onto the players
maybe.
at this point.
It's almost impossible to actually land that, though. I mean, incredibly difficult anyway. Gilded Gladiators, they've got their work cut out for them. Composition's all right on the defense, but with all Cthulhu compositions, it makes the team fight so telegraphed. Survive Descent into Madness, you've probably won the fight.
Well, Siege starting up on left.
What hit Snoopy again, man?
I don't know, enough damage to make him rethink things. Cyno might have to rethink things as well. Scary D gets aggressive up into the air. And yeah, he's out of there. Baskin, meanwhile, is the opposite. Deep, deep in the base for the Gladiators. But he's going to be forcing a disengage. Heal's going to do a lot here.
We nerfed healing,
Give a
right?
reset for the Ferryman.
Man, they are just resustaining so fast. Baskin's cooldowns are ridiculous. They're back to HP, man. They're full HP. They're walking back in.
Baskin leads the way.
And back out.
And falls them back immediately. Scary D's taking a lot. Snoopy just dies in the back, man.
Did he walk into an ice storm?
Hitting him, but he is gone. And now the fight's wide open for the Ferryman. You still got low health bars. Kyrmi
what are you going? No!
and dies. I mean, crumpling around, and it feels like nothing the Ferryman is doing is really finding him the success. It's calls from the Gladiators playing into the Ferryman. That's working out for them. Now up into the Meteor goes Cyno, crashing into the Titan room. 5 strong. Fire has worn off, so they're going to rely on their own sustain, but they've got the damage. Scary. Oh, he seemed so tanky earlier on, but he just can't do it with Stu gone. It's the deicide, and it's the set.
That has got to be the most frustrating composition to play into now. I mean, it's the spirit of the Tartarus Titans, isn't it? Or the Tartarus Titans of Season 9 to find the most absolutely annoying, ridiculous, just disgusting composition that they could, be it healing at the time, now healing again, or the double Cthulhus, or things along those lines. I thought sustain was nerfed enough. I thought that healing wasn't going to be stacking up like it was. I watched Guan Yu essentially just do bop, bop, bop 3 times in a row immediately, throws out 3 heals. Hell's doing the exact same thing. Nothing. The Gladiators threw at the Ferryman stuck. They just resustained it so fast.
I would need to rewatch, and you had called it the first initial engage. What chunked Snoopy to have?
Yeah, I got to figure that out.
And then at the very end, I want to see, like, he had to have stepped forward. I mean, maybe it's just a well-placed ability from Paul. That gets a kill that feels like it's the most devastating. Then the teleport from Kyrmi also causes a lot of trouble, right? Because all of a sudden you're under Phoenix, now surrounded by the enemy team. Things just crumble there at the very end for the Gladiators, and it is a 0-2 loss for them. A 2-0 victory, however, for the now branded Ferrymen coming into the SPL for this year, starting things off, I think, feeling really solid. And if I remember correctly, this one was an out-of-division game for them, so that's going to be the only matchup they have for the Gladiators for the next, 6 weeks. And so maybe not rest on their laurels, but reset, feel confident, and feel pretty excited about what they have going on for them here. But to break down the set and give us more intel, we're going to the desk.
It was indeed, if my eyes did not deceive me, an ice storm that Snoopy took a step or two forward into there on the base siege. And look, does it ultimately make a world of difference? I mean, in that moment, yes, right? But is Snoopy going to be able to defend that base against the rest of the Styx Ferrymen? Unlikely. Look, the problem is, and I think for the Gilded Gladiators, Trelly, it's almost the same exact conversation we had from Game 1.
Yep.
Where early scrap time was good. Kyrmi actually had a couple kills early. Cyno answered back. And then by the time we're grouping for an objective, despite 3 runic bombs, despite objective control for the Gladiators, then we're all grouping for the big one. The team fight just couldn't keep up.
Yeah, and it seemed like Scary D was able to be extremely disruptive on that Cthulhu ult as we expected. I don't know what the adaptation is. Possibly just, going home and just practicing in scrims like 20 minutes plus consistently for the Gilded Gladiators to get that mindset down, because, again, their early game, they seem to have it pretty locked in. It's just that team fight around Fire Giant that really does seem to be where the Gladiators struggle and where the Styx Ferrymen, at this point, were just thriving. The sustained comp, if you're not winning that first iteration of the fight, you're going to back up, you're going to get healed up. You're going to win that second iteration for sure. Anti-heal was there, just was not enough. Didn't seem like the Gilded Gladiators were able to end fights quick enough to take it home.
Now, worth mentioning, I mean, there is a decent lead for the Styx Ferrymen by the end of the game, and so the healing is going to stick. Though, most of the healing, except for Hell, if I remember correctly, the Guan Yu healing, it's just level-based, and so scaling less important outside of just leveling the abilities. That was the replay, right? I just looked over at you. Was it just an ice storm that he ended up?
Yep, he was just walking it a little too long.
He just walked into the ice storm, and Kyrmi takes that teleport forward. Because, look, this is a 12K gold lead, but maybe 10 minutes prior was a dead-even game.
Yep.
It's just the snap, sudden, lose-one team fight, and the game is over type moments is what the Gilded Gladiators are going to have to figure out throughout the early portion of their season. And I think it's got to feel good for the Ferrymen, a team who have had, well, I guess they've won some opening tournaments in years of past, but a team that, as we've mentioned, is usually middle-of-the-road standings-wise in our round robins, shows up during tournament time. It's a great way to start their year.
I would say so, especially if that's what you're planning for, just showing up big for the tournaments, getting a win right out the gate. I think bodes well for them, especially because we got We got to see a little bit of what they want to do draft-wise, but they didn't have to change up their comp too much, right? They didn't reveal, hey, we only like playing this healing. If it gets given to us, we're going to take it, and I think a lot of teams are probably taking note of that already.
Styx Ferrymen 2-0 in their first set here in Season 10 of the SMITE Pro League, and it's CycloneSpin standing by for the postgame.
That's right. I've got Cyclone standing by, and you actually brought it up. I almost completely forgot, but because last year, maybe an earlier exit than you anticipated from the SBL, you come back in, win your first set. How's it feeling?
It feels good, but nothing really changed. It was only like a 2-month break, so it's like I've never really left.
You really just got like a little mini vacation.
Yeah.
And now you get to come back in feeling maybe even more like refurbished.
Yeah.
So you come into that. I do want to ask you a little bit, the game 2, a lot of stalling around that FG. What was the like kind of breaking moment where you guys realized you could get aggressive?
It was kind of when we poked them out a little bit, and then we all got like full build, because we know they can't ever pull fire because their comp's not really built for it, so we can just kind of stall and wait for them to mess up. Or if we get like a good poke or engage on, then we can take advantage of it.
Nike into Cyno playing the Surtr in the jungle. Is that something that we should just come to expect from Cyno, or is that some like spice that he just decided to throw at you guys today?
I think everyone should just expect Cyno to just cook some random thing that he finds like fun and enjoyable.
We had said it during the cast, but it's like sometimes you just got to give Cyno like 10 minutes, and then he's going to show you why the pick is going to work. You guys come into this though, you win it. Looking towards phase 1, kind of the future for the Ferrymen. How are you guys feeling as a whole for your division and really feeling for this first phase?
We're feeling really good. We're just kind of using the first phase as like trying to build chemistry and like improve ourselves right now. Well, that's about it.
Well, hey, it sounds like things are going well, right? You start off with a 2-0, so chemistry seems to be there and improving yourselves. If it's only uphill from here, it's going to be really good for you guys. So, hey, congrats on the win. Thanks for your time. We'll throw it back over to the desk.
Chemistry time for the Styx Ferrymen, and if that's how they're starting off, things bode pretty well for the remainder of phase 1 and potentially the remainder of the year. I like Cyclone's mindset there with Cyno. Look, sometimes you just got to let him cook, let him do his thing. Took a minute for the Surtr to get there. It was like the 10, 11-minute mark. We started to see it really connect. Mifflin was even baffled a bit. The Gladiators almost completely uninterested in fighting against the Surtr throughout the late, early, mid portion of that game.
Yep.
And then down the stretch. So that's our first best of 3 in the books for this Saturday. We've got 2 more best of 3s on this SPL Saturday. And then guess what, Trelly? We're doing it all again tomorrow. We got 3 best of 3s. But today, you get to look forward to the Eldritch Hounds and their first match in the SMITE Pro League officially for Season 10 up against the Highland Ravens, who 2-0'd the Atlantis Leviathans yesterday. So now it's expectations of the Hounds versus new expectations for the Ravens after their first set of the phase. And then our day will end with Oni Warriors versus Atlantis Leviathans. Of course, the North American community broadcast will be live after our SPL day wraps here. Eldritch Hounds versus Highland Ravens here, Trelly. After what we saw from the Ravens, do you think their expectations are now higher based on almost the gauntlet they've thrown down for themselves?
I would say they already have high expectations for themselves. It seems like the community and the fans were a little bit upset with how they performed in that first tournament. Yep. They're like, how good is this team now that we've seen them in game? They're set yesterday. We know, okay, they actually can perform. So I would say definitely some high expectations here. The Hounds had a pretty solid performance in their kickoff tournament, so I expect this one to be a good match for sure.
Yeah, and the Hounds, they 2-0'd the Styx Ferrymen, actually, I believe, in that kickoff tournament. The Highland Ravens bowed out early. And so this was the Eldritch Hounds team where a lot of the conversation was, look, they are a qualifier team, but they're playing a bit better than that. Again, just from the kickoff tournament. Now, consistently doing that is the data that we're going to start collecting over the next few matchups. But a Hounds team, I think that starts off on a bit of a better foot from where some of the other qualifier teams have been in the past. Some final thoughts on this one, though, Trelly. It's the Styx Ferrymen grabbing themselves the 2-0 over the Gilded Gladiators. I think the Gladiators expected some growing pains, but do you feel like the Ferrymen are right on track?
I would say so. This is the kind of style I expected from them. They got the cringe healing comp going for them. Cyno's playing some weird junglers. They're filling out the shoes just fine.
Are you and I casting this next one?
I believe so.
All right, Trelly and I. We're going to be casting the Eldritch Hounds up against the Highland Ravens coming up next.